Somebody else was asking about that. It was not me.
About the tax impact on the warrant?
Yeah.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Budget Committee meeting this evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:06 PM. And the roll call, Maxanne Dobson here, Sam Cafiso.
Here.
Dennis Heffernan.
Here.
Lori Millette.
Here.
Jay DeRoche.
Here.
Katie Ingalls.
Here.
Peter Bocci.
Here.
Bob Hamilton.
Here.
Greg Talon.
Here.
And Finance Director Greg Colby is here, and Mark Pearson, Town Manager, is here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone here for budget-related public comment? No? Okay. Next item is the assessing discussion. And Greg, do you have more information on that? Were you able to pull that up now? No.
I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
We were going to discuss the assessing because Dennis had questions about the RFPs. And I know
Okay.
you guys didn't discuss it at your Board of Selectmen meeting.
We did not.
Monday.
We were waiting for Francine to come back. There's two answers from for the RFP. There's one from Vision, which is also the company that wrote the software that we are now using. And there was also one from our original assessor. That one, by the time that we evaluate it, it has a clause in it saying that we only have 30 days to decide.
Can you disclose the cost or what the RFP came in at?
Yeah, the costs were almost exactly the same. One of them was $4,000 more, but basically said if you are going to do your own mailing, then you'd save about $4,000. So the two costs were almost identical.
And what is that?
I don't have them right here with me, but
One was 136, I believe the other one was 141, so there was a delta of 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
My information was that if the one that 141 was not required to take out a bond, that the bond was that difference, the delta, not the mailing. So it's slightly different than what he asked.
Okay.
But in either case, there was a statement made that it would come in right at the 136.
Okay.
Whether it was one or the other.
right.
And then the values anew is 175. Is that the cost of that?
That's the approximate cost
The
of that.
approximate cost? So I think, Dennis, your question was to see
Is that two different?
if there was wiggle room in that line item.
Right, yeah, I think what my concern was, if my math is correct, that line, if you look at it, it's up 196,331.
With those two totals that you just.
Yep, with the increase of 39%, based on the budget we're looking at.
Just a little correction. Those RFPs were for the values anew.
Okay,
What was budgeted was the 175, which we thought was an approximate cost to
Okay.
cover that. Okay? So it ended up being a lot less than what we
Okay.
initially.
yes, Jay.
So can you tell us what that line breaks down to? I know there's another piece in there, so there's the actual assessing contract and then.
Remember that was it 290? 290,500. So it was 290,500 was the total line in assessing that included all of the current contracts that extend to the end of December of 2020, this year, plus, I believe it would have included the 175. So if you took the 175 out from the 290, it would give you the remaining amount that was designated for the other contracts related to all the other pieces that were contracted out to Corcoran for the remainder of the year. So the Corcoran is performing the functions right now, and then they have the people that are here so many hours a week to perform the measuring and going out in the field work, and some office time. So we're working backwards from 290. But
Okay.
it appears to me, the 36, so there's about, see if I have my math right, 175 minus, so there's about $40,000 delta from what was budgeted to what we think that the number is for the assessing.
And that includes,
That includes everything that was intended for this year, including that number we put in there for 175, we know now is roughly the 136.
Lori?
I believe, maybe you remember, Greg, the Board of Selectmen extended Cochran's contract in December, and I believe that figure was 115.
That sounds familiar, Laurie.
So that would be the 115 and the 175, that would get you to the 290, right?
That's what, that sounds, yeah.
It sounds,
But those are I think the contract was extended for those individual tasks that she was going to take on, independent of who ended up being the new assessor. So what Mark is enumerating is the work that she was going to be doing.
Like the
Copper.
transition period.
Right.
right, so there would be there's a couple, if I remember correctly, it's at least a couple, if not 3 different pieces to the Corcoran contract. One was the base, and then there was the supplemental for the work that they do in the office in the field. I think you're correct. I think that if you take the 175 out of the 290, you're at 115. So that's the Corcoran piece that we have contracts for. And now we know we have the RFP came in for, if you round it off to 136 or whatever you round it off to, so that would make sense. So I'm sorry we didn't have those numbers in front of us, because what the Board of Selectmen was going to do was wait until February 3rd so that there was, the full board, but now we know it'll only be 4 that would be there, because they were going to review that RFP and make a decision at that point. So I wasn't prepared to talk about the assessing tonight, because in my mind, we were going to talk about it on the 3rd.
Bob?
go.
The assessing transition, software transition, when does that end? Is that still taking place, or is that over?
They're running parallel right now. So
When does the
They move the
transition-
data over to the Vision software, and they have it running on both.
Correct.
pieces
So
of
the
software.
transition is, my understanding, I thought I recall that they said around July that they were going to transition, because it was about a timing issue for the fall bills.
Right. It had to be before to get.
There was a
fall bills
date
out.
certain sometime during the summer that it was going to transition, but we're running in parallel now,
So July,
in the summer.
summer, okay.
Dennis, did you want to add something?
So based on what Laurie was saying, if I'm following the logic correctly, the 290 you were saying, and we would have to add the 40,000 to that? Am I making?
No.
No.
You would actually deduct out the 40,000
Okay.
if my math is correct. It
Okay.
might be 39,000 to make it exact, but this is premature only because it's not a done deal with the Board of Selectmen yet, because they still have to make their decision. So I'm not making the decision for the Board of Selectmen.
No, I hear you. So if and correct me if my math's wrong, so if you do that, wouldn't we be at 250,000? 255? And this budget is at 323,466?
Well, we were looking at the line item that was related to the contracts.
The 290.
That's where the 290
Okay,
was.
I gotcha.
So if there's 39,000, if my math's right, 39,000, it would come off of the line item, which would reduce the bottom line by that same amount.
Right.
So one of the things that you could consider doing is waiting for the Board of Selectmen on February 3rd to make the decision, and then make the adjustment at deliberative session.
On the floor, yeah.
Yeah,
Then we'd have exact numbers.
exact numbers.
I'm still having, I mean, even looking at that, I mean, it's 50,000, I mean,
What's the high end of the RFP if we budgeted for the higher one?
141,
141.
yeah. So the
We only have a
175.
choice between those two.
So that's 34,000.
I'm going to make a motion to cut 20,000 out of this. That still gives, well, I'll explain my explanation after. So I'm going to make a motion to cut 20,000 out of this, and it's going to come out of the assessors contract line, so that will reduce to
270, 500?
270,500, yep. 270,500 for a bottom line of,
303,466.
what will it be?
303,466.
303,466.
Is there a second
Second it.
discussion? Did you want to
I'll-
explain?
I'll explain my reasoning. So if we're looking here, if we still need to make a cut at deliberative session, we can do that. But if I'm looking at that, we're still leaving 30,000 wiggle room in that budget for a budget that's up 39%, you know, the 196,331 increase. So, you know, looking to cut 20,000 out with my
Right.
thought process.
So that's 14,000 that you're referring to? There's 34,000 left. You're taking 20 off, that would leave 14.
As the
Yeah,
delta,
yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Can we take a vote?
Oh, can I ask for clarification? What's the bottom number again? Is it 303?
303, 466.
466.
Okay, sorry.
Pete, did you have your hand up too? No. All right, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So 8-1-0. Okay, at this point, I'd like to call up the new fire chief and. the
Deputy Fire Chief.
Deputy Fire Chief. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
What page?
Look,
Trust me, it's hard to work on that.
Yeah.
page 25.
I got a better way to do this. This thing's gotta be printed.
It was just subtract 20 to get this number.
Correct. It came from that one line, make a note on that.
Yeah, I have it. I know, I wrote it there. Assessing contract. Hi.
So, second week,
Yes, please
first
introduce
budget
yourself.
meeting, you know. Good way to start off right here. And they put me down as number one, so I don't even get a chance to watch somebody else first. So they're breaking me in right. So I put together our 2019 budget report for you all to kind of go over some, a little bit of background what the fire department was, what we accomplished in the year 2019. Now, obviously, I was not here during that time period, but I've done a lot of data collection this last week to prepare myself for tonight. So I'll start off with the fact that we were allocated $692,842 in our operating budget for 2019. And we slightly went over that by $697,029, which is still an estimated amount because I don't believe all the accounts have cleared out yet, or possibly not all cleared out, which I'm sure you all understand that. I can tell you that the big reason of the over expenditure was having to maintenance some aging apparatus. The ladder truck that we have has got some years on it. And this last year, we had to replace two of the big lift cylinders that raise up the boom of the ladder truck. And those are estimated about $8,000, was it $4,000 a piece? $4,000 a piece. So those were $4,000 each. So that was $8,000 out of our budget that obviously we did not predict or did not know was going to happen. So that was one of the reasons that's started pushing us into the red for the 2019 year. Some changes that were made. You all know that for the entire year 2019, you all operated underneath a interim fire chief, which did an excellent job changing some things within the organization that helped with efficiency. And one of those was utilizing the officers that are within the department. We have 2 deputy chiefs, 2 captains, and 2 lieutenants, and there was a lot of delegation of authority to those lower level officers to perform a little bit more above what they were used to doing, which helped the department run smoothly this last 12 months. It also gave them experience on some upper level management that maybe they've not been exposed to. So I think was a very good enhancement to the command staff of that department, and I got to commend them for what I've seen so far the week that I've been here and actually gathering stuff before I come last month. They've done an excellent job with making some positive changes that are increasing the response capabilities and service provided to our customers in this town. Some of that was weekend staffing. They made some changes to the budget. They reallocated some money that was allocated for additional staffing during holiday time periods. They asked for a little bit more money, increased some stipends for the per diem to take the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, which only had 2 personnel staffing at that time from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., to increase it to 3, which allowed now for an immediate response, actionary response to the calls of need in the community. Prior to that, with only 2 people, if a fire call originated, they would have to wait for someone to come in before they could respond. So you already have 2 people there. Now they're having to wait for a call firefighter to come in before they could respond, which would delay their response time. So by increasing that, that has greatly increased the services provided to the people here in this town. They completed 54 training events. Training and continuing education is extremely important in our industry. Most of the skills, if not all the skills that we have, are all perishable. So that means if we're not getting exposed to them by on-the-job experiences, we have to make that up in classroom and in scenarios and on the drill ground. So this last year, they completed 54 different training events with a total of 2,208 man-hours of training. So the staff at that department is committed to making sure that they're prepared to handle the emergencies. And training events, simple everyday fire suppression tasks to advanced life support training to self-defense classes. They had a very well spread, if you will, lesson plan throughout the year to prepare them for what they might be faced. So when you all or someone called for something, that they would be able to efficiently and effectively handle that emergency. And like I said, knowledge, skills, and ability was where we have to be. The fire department, the fire service is critical infrastructure in any community. Obviously, you all know that we don't have competition out there. We're not a business. If you don't like our product, you cannot go to another call or another business and call somebody else. Our people have to be prepared to handle that emergency. So I was proud to see the training that they accomplished this last year. We have a strong fire prevention and education program through our fire inspector, and we're going to get another fire inspector, I believe, coming up soon, going to that class. Last year, they provided 200 occupancy and site inspections. That's one of the most important things that we do because we really want to prevent fires. You know, we kind of want to put ourselves out of business. We don't want to have to go to fires. That's more of a reactionary response of our department. We want to be more on the preventive side. So that was good to see that our inspector did over 200 inspections on the occupancy out there, identifying fire dangers and then educating the people there what they need to do to fix that and to prevent something from happening. Also with that, they issued 296 burn permits. Now with that, if you're a new customer to that, they educate you on what you can and cannot burn and some safety on outside burning. So all that falls underneath that prevention wing of the department, and they stayed quite busy there. Now, calls for service, I put the last 2 years up so we could just compare a little bit, see if there's any trends. 2018, we answered 1,037 calls. In 2019, we responded to about 61 more, 1,098. You can see the trend there, or it bumps up and down. There's some predictability in emergency services, but you never know. I mean, you could have a month that was busy this year, maybe next year it's just not busy for whatever reason. And that could be because of weather. There's a lot of factors, obviously, that play into emergencies are non really predictable. But you could kind of see where we were at the last 12 months, or really the last 24 months for calls of service. We had 28 fire incidents last year. 3 of those were reported in structures, which is important. Obviously, if it's a residence or a business, we want to get there as quick as we can to prevent the fire from spreading and destroying the structure or taking someone's life. So we had three fires in structures last year. Some other ones that are important, the one chimney fire, obviously that was in a building somewhere. Even though it was confined to the chimney, without a response, that fire maybe could have got out and extended into the building as well. And then the 3 trash fires, outside cooking fire, a couple cooking fires, 5 mulch fires. All those, even though they might look insignificant because it's not underneath the structure fire icon, they are significant because obviously they could have spread into a building that was nearby and caused more damage than what happened. They touched the lives of 695 people last year responding to medical emergencies. So that big wing, that big chunk of the pie right there, where it says medical emergency, those are rescue calls that our staff responded to, arriving mostly before the ambulance, transport ambulance gets there, and started patient care prior to the transport paramedic arriving, increasing survivability during a medical event and decreasing long-term deficits that could happen during a stroke, cardiac arrest, and such. 68 motor vehicle accidents. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Where would the opioid responses fall in there?
They would fall under the 695. Okay. So I didn't break that out.
No.
And I'm not sure if our computer system would allow us to break that out.
It would take a lot of legwork.
It would
We
take a
could've
lot.
picked those
But
numbers
just
out.
in general, is that something you're seeing a
It seems to be a
increase?
decline this year from the last few years.
That's
Yes,
good.
definitely.
That's good.
But those numbers are attainable, but it would take a lot of legwork.
Yeah, no, I'm just general of increase, decrease, where we're at as
Slight
far as
decrease
that.
this year.
That's good. Thank you.
Some distinguished events that the department participated in 2019 was your Old Home Day event on June 22nd. They provide EMS coverage for the attendees that are there. They also provide 2 details for the fireworks show. One's on the inspection side of it for site safety, and the other one is for a fire watch for the post-event to make sure no fires are getting out of control from the fireworks. On December 7th, they have their annual toy drive. They also partner with the Lions Club and Trinity EMS to collect toys for the needy children. Got ahead of myself. On December 20th, they were greeted with an emergency in the lobby of the fire station, which I'm sure you all seen on the news, but I think it's worth you to talk about that again and the importance of having staff there at the fire department. From the time the mother presented at the front door to the delivery of the child was 7 minutes. So the reaction time to the staff there was phenomenal. They didn't have much time to think about anything. They didn't have much time to reference anything. They pretty much gathered, the mother brought her inside to where it was warm and went to work assisting with the delivery of a healthy baby boy from what I hear. So if we didn't have staff at the department at that point, things could have been a little bit different, especially if she delivered outside in the cold weather. Newborns, neonates, don't handle temperature loss well at all. So the fact that we were there inside in the warm definitely affected the outcome of the birth of that child. On December 22nd, I think this is a pretty noteworthy event. We had to make sure Santa Claus knows where he's going. So they do their little Santa tour throughout the town to make sure he knows where all the stops are, right? And so those are some distinguished events. Some changes that were made in 2019 to, like I said, to help increase the efficiency of the department is they raised the on-call from $25 to $50 to try to increase sign-up participation, especially on the weekends or nights, which has had some effect in that, it's increased the motivation for some of our on-call staff. Way I talked about already, the increased weekend staffing and improved response time. When we have adequate staff at the station, our actionary response time out the door is between 60 and 90 seconds from the time we're alerted to a call. Looking at statistics, go ahead.
Is that on-call pay, like during the week, does it go from like 6 at night to 6 in the morning, and on the weekend it's all day? Or
What those are is there's 3 people that guarantee at night that they will be around, so they put their name in a block.
Yep.
So that's weeknights, and on the weekend, there's a duty officer during the day that puts his name on, that guarantees that he will be around. That will be myself, one of the other officers. And then weekends at night, once again, there's people putting their name in those blocks to guarantee that there'll be a staff person available.
So during the week, the pay is for a half a day, and for the weekend is for a full day.
During the week, the staff is covering from 6 AM to 6 PM. Then there's a gap between 6 PM and 10 PM. We have no guarantee that we're gonna have anybody available. And then at 10 PM, these blocks start opening up where people can put their name in to guarantee that they'll be there
$50 from 10 PM till the morning.
per block, correct? Yep, and
And
there's,
on the weekend, it goes from 6 in the morning to 6 the next morning.
it's the same block. They'll put their name in the $50 block, and I don't have them in front of me. It's basically the same.
So, John, I think what he's asking is, I just don't think that he, Mr. Bracci understands that there's staffing at the police station from 6 AM till 6 PM on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yes, the full-time staff is there along with a per diem person. That's the regular staffing, but at 6 PM, they go home, and then these people take over. But like I said, like right now, we can't guarantee anybody from 6 PM until 10 PM. There's a void right now that we don't have these blocks in place. So that kind of made me nervous for the year that I've been filling in as chief, that not having a guarantee between 6 PM and 10 PM, that there might be one member, there might be 10. We just don't know because there's nothing guaranteed. So what happened here is during the year, there was weekends that was lacking. People weren't taking spots. And I had talked to Mark a couple times about this. And we used to have holiday signups would go up for $50 for a block. They would fill up like that. So I went in front of the Board of Selectmen and talked about the weekends and was asking for an increase to get it to $50 to try to get people's more interest and involvement to taking a shift during the weekend. Everybody wants to go away, but, for a commitment to get somebody to fill up. So it was bumped to $50 across the board for every block, and we've done very well since then. We've had almost unilateral coverage that the blocks have been filled. So it definitely made a difference. And it's comforting as a chief. I knew that, hey, I can guarantee that I'm at least going to have the 3 people responding. And like I said, from now until 10, right now, we don't have a spot guarantee. That's something in the future we need to look at. But I think by doing this change this year, the weekends filled up, and the availability of the people became better.
Have we ran into an issue between the 6 and 10 that you know of in this past year? Let's just go this
With
past.
no one being available?
Yeah,
No, I'd have to dig back, but you might have a response, you might need 8 people. And like I said, we can't guarantee, we're gonna get 2 or 3 probably, but
Exactly.
most of our members work out of towns. The full-time staff, at 6 o'clock, they're going home to do something.
Right.
Our other staff is coming back from wherever they work out of town, so there's a void in there. that
and you
needs to be-
can't determine if they work out of town, traffic, so forth.
They're meeting
You're
a
just
spouse,
running
if they're
in.
taking their
Yeah.
kids somewhere, there's no guarantee of anything at that time frame. So like I said, during my tenure for the year, I was very nervous every day, worrying between 6 and 10. If something happens, am I gonna have the staff available to handle a call? Am I gonna have to wait for mutual aid to come?
Right.
It's,
And that kind of earmarks into that last bullet point at the bottom there, from 6 PM to 6 AM, we don't have staff at the department. So I pulled the statistics for the last several months to see how long it takes us to get an apparatus out the door. And that average time is 9.9 minutes. So I think that's something to point out and to look at, to understand that during the day, we're getting an apparatus out the door between 60 and 90 seconds. 6 PM to 6 AM, it's taking us 9.9 minutes to get an apparatus out the door. Sometimes that gets a little bit confused with a officer getting on the scene. So we might have an officer go straight to the scene, and that doesn't really stop the clock. What stops the clock, especially if your house is on fire, is having an effective fire suppression unit show up. So that's a fire truck with enough people on it to go to work. So that's something I'm looking at this year to see what we can to improve that nighttime response. Especially, historically speaking, most people die in house fires at night when they're sleeping. So that's when we really want to be at our fastest times, really, to get there. So that's something I'm going to be looking at to with our command staff to develop some solutions to try to decrease that 9.9 minutes as much as we can.
What's happened over the years is our members, years ago, lived closer to the center of town, closer to the station, so they could get to the station, get their gear, get in the truck, and get out the door. But now, our members live about, a lot of them, as far away as you can get from the station on the border of a neighboring community. So it takes them time to get up at night, to get their stuff, to get in their vehicle, to drive to the station because of the distance that they're away, get in the gear room, get their gear, and then get on the truck and get out the door. So we're kind of hindered from when the tone goes off, just by where these people live. You know, they live so far away from the core of the town, and in the past, when I started 30 years ago, it was just a core group of people that lived within 2 minutes of the station, so the truck will get out the door a lot quicker, and that has changed over time. And it's just by where the people live that it's putting us in a disadvantage at night.
Any more questions on? So some benefits of a quicker response time. For our medical rescue response, it definitely improves patient outcomes. If we have someone if we have a non-breathing patient, for example, for whatever reason could have caused that, from an overdose or cardiac arrest, respiratory arrest, or someone choking, it's a non-breathing patient, within 4 minutes, brain damage is going to start. Okay? From 4 to 6 minutes, brain damage begins to become irreversible. So now, we might be able to save them, but they'll maybe have some deficits, and we don't know what those deficits are. So the quicker that we could get our hands on the patients that are sick and injured, the better off they are. You know, for trauma patients, we want to get there and get bleeding stopped, get them to a trauma center as quick as we possibly can. For fire response side, it increases survivability in a building fire. Smoke is the enemy. People don't die in house fires from a thermal insult. They die because of carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide gases, which are byproducts of fire. They quickly die from that. So we had to get there quick to get in, do a search, find them, and get them out of the building. And then, and lastly, it decreases property damage. The quicker we could get there to get the fire stopped and extinguished, the less property damage is done for our customer. Fires don't increase by minutes. The day's fires and fire loading, fires increase by the seconds. So every second matters.
Chiefs, before you move on, the photo in this slide, I think, shows a very good point that you guys might not realize yourselves, being so familiar with the equipment, but that's what, is that almost a 100-foot ladder or tower?
It is.
Yep, it's 100 foot.
I can't tell you how many times people have asked me, you're involved in the town, we only have 3-story buildings in town, why do we need such a tall truck? And the previous chief explained this to me, and it was just a light bulb went off, something that the average person would never, ever think about. That when you have a suburban situation where a house is 100 feet off the road, you can't drive the fire truck up to the edge of the house and sink it in somebody's septic system or in their front yard. Yep. So that shows a really good point of why we need such a long.
So I strategically placed that picture
That's good.
there to
That's
see
good.
that. So I'm glad you found that, you know.
I was hoping you were going to make the point, but I was going to make sure it got.
People don't understand the setbacks. You know, they think it's just the height going up, and we have to subtract the distance from the building as well as height going up for our reach capabilities.
That was a great example too. At that fire, I was there, the interior stairwell had burned away, so we had pretty much no access to get up to the second floor to overhaul the fire. So the area was available to get up to a window, to go in that way.
It really illustrates
That's
it
a
well.
great picture for an example.
And lastly, obviously, we want to make sure we do our due diligence with responsible spending of the town's money. 2019, again, we were budgeted 692, 842. 2020, we only had an increase of 25,949. The majority of that was with salary increases for a 3% pay raise, and then about a $10,000 per
The extra
diem.
money is for the weekend per
Per
diem
diems.
spot, that third person on Saturday and Sunday. It's a 12-hour shift, it's $16 an hour, so it's about $192 per shift to put that person in there. So that's what, I did the budget during the fall, I worked with Mr. Pearson, and the rest of the budget is pretty much a rubber stamp of the last year's budget. Chief McCardle had always done the budget in the past, so I went in and looked at the records and went back a few years and tried to gauge, and did I think it was okay for this 2020 year? I hope so. We overspent a couple of the lines. The truck repair budget has been overspent, and then where we purchase our medical supplies, that budget was overspent this year. We had to buy more medical supplies. So we're gonna have to watch that really close in 2020 because every other line item is pretty much a rubber stamp of what was in place for last year. So I think that's gonna have to be checked monthly to gauge that and how it's changing.
So I hope you all you see that in 2019, the money that was allocated for fire suppression or emergency services on the fire department side was well spent and is being utilized to the best ability that money was.
I have a question about response time, or responses. You calculated here by the month. Do you separate between commercial calls and residential calls?
Call's a call, really.
Okay. Did you do that in your town in Kentucky?
Tennessee,
Sorry.
we did not. Most of what we responded to was a lot of commercial, being a tourist industry town. So we did not really differentiate much between one or the other. I think our tracking system might be able to
We can
run
check
those
that out.
numbers.
And that's a very good point you brought up, because the building that's going out near Cumberland Farms, the medical building, that's gonna be a walk-in medical center.
Yes.
And through my past experience, I work for the Salem Fire Department too, I've been here for 34 years. And today, we've been to the walk-in centers, I left to come here 4 times already today. I worked on Monday,
Tuesday.
5 times, we went to the walk-in medical centers on Monday. So that, I'm gonna say that facility, once it's open this summer, is gonna add between 100 and 150 runs to our yearly total. So what's gonna happen during the day is our 3 people on duty are gonna be over there treating a patient that walked in, and they're gonna wait to transport him to one of the local hospitals. Well then, if Mrs. Smith on Route 108 calls for our service, we're not gonna be available, because we're gonna be sitting over there at the walk-in medical center with the patient there. So the commercial end of it is a big factor affecting our response. Something like that, and with the potable water coming into town, that's gonna draw in more businesses, and we don't have any right now, but my past experience with the assisted living facilities that are going up, those are a draw-in service, at least 150 to 200 calls per year per assisted living building that goes up. Anytime anybody falls in one of those, they get transported to the hospital. There's one that just went up in Kingston with 200 beds. Yeah. It's a huge facility, and they're gonna be responding quite often there. So potable water coming into town is gonna be a drawing point for more commercial, but different types of commercial venues too. So that's something we need to think about for the future, because they're drawing our service.
So you are definitely considering tracking commercial.
Yeah, we can go
Versus
back, and
residential.
that's easily done.
We should be able to go back and look at that. Now, some of it, like if it's a medical call, there's probably not a box there to put commercial, it's just located by address. So, but we can maybe go back and track some of the addresses and such.
This would just help us to determine what's growing. Is it commercial calls or is it residential?
Yeah, just like I said, that takes time. Like for the response times, I went through 2 years of our sheets by hand, over 2,000 sheets. So somebody could actually just look at addresses. Hey, 58 Plaistow Road, that's one of the plazas, we went there, and they check a box. So we can easily gather that data for you. And, you know, for the future, to be able to say, hey, we went 25 X amount of times.
And one thing I didn't have was overlapping calls. So that would be an important number to look at, as well as how many times do we have 2 calls going or 3 calls going at the same time. So, and that was on my thought process, but we didn't have the data to be able to put together an accurate or factual
We've
report.
only been here a week, and that's already happened a couple times in the week. We've been here, we've been on 1 call, and a second call comes in during the daytime, and that's when all our people are at work. So we're relying on the 3 people that are at the station to cover the first call, and when the second call comes in, it's, once again, that's a hit or miss time. Are some of our people home for the day? Are they not home for the day? We really don't know that, so.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
I noticed that in December, you had 39 more calls than you had last year. That seemed to be the biggest increase of the year. Was there a reason for that?
That was just a busy month. That's probably the busy month. I've been here 37 years now. It's one of the busiest months I think we've ever had for calls, so it's tough to say.
Could you determine whether it was because of residential or commercial?
Once again, we can
Towards
go
one
in
or the
there.
other?
pick
We
those
could
out.
look, but if it's a medical call, I mean, it might be at a business, but they might have just been driving down the road and pull off.
Correct.
You know, so
Right.
some of those would be kind of hard to factually put together an accurate report on if it was a true commercial or residential call.
We can tell you that, yes, we responded to that address,
Yeah.
where it was.
Right.
We can let you know that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Was last year or 2018 the first year that you had the administrative assistant?
It was part of the year.
Do you still have the
We
administrative?
don't have one right now, no. She left to go to another job, so we don't have an admin person right now.
Well, let me clarify it. She still comes in to do some work. She's not using the whole, full 24 hours a week, but she is still coming in weekly to assist.
And we're going through the application process to get that position filled as quick as we can, because it is a needed position, and I've actually been talking with the current one now to try to get her to come in
Part-time.
Yeah, it's 24
part-time.
hours.
Yeah.
24 hours.
per week.
Did you have a question, Dennis?
I just, general question of, in regards to, and this is to Deputy Chief, the building, how's the building holding up?
Very well. Yep. It's what we've needed for the past, and to grow into it for the future, it's gonna serve us well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to
And-
Plaistow.
Thank you.
Deputy Chief Judson, thank you for all your hard work this past year and keeping us afloat. Yes. Appreciate it.
Dorothy, make sure you guys introduce yourself, too.
You have
Trying to embarrass it. Thank you.
No, I'm all set. If you have an extra when you're done.
The gun gave it away.
Thank you.
Saying you had to meet some of us.
Our PowerPoint isn't as beautiful,
Colorful.
not colorful.
You guys have less.
You saved on the ink.
See, that's
See,
perfect.
that's
We
what
gave
it
you
is.
a lot of reading material, though, so you can go home and look at it.
Thank you.
Before you guys start your presentation, I just wanted to say, because of the time, the public hearing will be delayed until you guys are done with your presentation.
You have to bear with me, it's my first PowerPoint, so might get a little rough at times, I guess.
Dorothy, before you start, can I just explain that the reason why the chief isn't here tonight is he had a family emergency with a family member, and he was called away today, so I excused him from this presentation. Otherwise, he would have been here. It was unexpected, and we're hoping that the family member, we're praying for the family member.
So I introduced myself, but this is Executive Assistant Sarah Gibbs. I call her the Deputy Chief, because she does a lot except carry a gun. She's fantastic. So we're gonna show you, we've restructured a bit as far as administration. We're not as top-heavy as we once were. We're trying to concentrate more on patrol and making sure we have boots on the road. And that basically, we're providing the services we can. We're not stacking calls, things like that. And this kind of shows how we cut it down. So now you have the chief and I, we both respond to calls if we're needed. In the past, the administrative captain and the patrol captain would do that. We have two less people. Brian McCary is our new secretary. He came in, he also does the part-time records clerk work. He loves it. He eats it up, so he's not complaining about the extra work at all. I took on the responsibilities of the captains. Same thing. It's all about learning and doing what you got to do, I guess. So last year, average number of officers on the road, in 2018 was 2 officers. For 4 of those days, you had 3 officers, but between the hours of 3 a.m. and 7:45 a.m., you had 1 officer. If an officer took a vacation day and they were the 3rd officer on shift, it's called earned time off for us, ETO, that was not filled. So a lot of times it ended up being 2 officers. This year we have 2 officers, but right now we have 2 people in field training. So tonight you have 2 duty officers, but each of them have an officer in field training. So that's 4 bodies. And a lot of the people don't know that they're in the training process, and sometimes all you need is those bodies to represent. and we have a detective on. So if they need him, he'll jump out and assist. Before that, with Chief Mullen, we had 3 people on evening shift. If somebody took that time off and they're the 3rd officer, we tried to fill it so we would maintain 3 people on that shift. Detectives, we got hit a little bit. Eddie Lucas was with us. He went to Boston PD. Our other detective is on medical leave right now, so he should be back soon, hopefully. So we have 2 of our patrol officers are splitting patrol and detectives, so they're doing it both part-time, so they're equaling 1 detective right now. And I'm also helping out with that. Previously, on Sundays, we didn't have anybody in detectives, and believe it or not, a lot of things happen on Sundays, and a lot of burglaries are discovered on Sundays. Now we have 7 days, they're not overlapping each other, so there's a detective there every day. And they're very patrol-oriented. They hear it, they're going out and helping out patrol. With prosecution, we went from 1 county attorney in 2018 to the Coyle Law Firm for savings. Now we have 2 experienced attorneys versus 1, and the time, or I should say the substance that they're packing into the less hours is incredible. There's a huge difference for us. I'll glance over it real quick, but ALS hearings is a hearing that we have with the state when somebody has a DUI to revoke their license. Before, an officer had to go do that by themselves. There was no preparation. We went in there blind. Unless you've been on the job a long time, you didn't know what you needed to present. Now the Coyles are there with us against these defense attorneys, so a lot of them are being won or they're being waived because the defense attorney doesn't want to even deal with the hearing. And that actually goes to less overtime because we don't have to pay for all these officers going to ALS hearings and losing them because they're being waived. When you win an ALS hearing, it strengthens your criminal case. And it also trains the officers with the Coyles because now they're learning exactly what they needed for those hearings. And also now when they go on the road, they're going to know, hey, this is what I learned at that hearing. I need to make sure I get this in. That has definitely improved officer morale, the teamwork with the Coyles. It kind of bleeds over to the same thing with court. Before we had nothing. I get subpoenaed constantly for cases. You folks unfortunately paid a lot of overtime for that, for me to go and say it's continued, or to go and say we're going to plea it right now. That does not happen anymore. A lot of these cases are being pled out. We're part of the discussion as to what we want. And that just because they're being pled out doesn't mean people aren't being held responsible. If they deserve to be held responsible, we're going to have the trial. But now, you're basically getting your money's worth, is the way to say it. Like I said, it just does less overtime with money saved. They prepare us with trial prep all the time. They're helping with juvenile prosecution. They help us all the time with everything, basically. Our last legal update was sponsored by the Kingston Police Department in 2013. In 2019, we had 2 legal updates, and we hosted them with other agencies coming in. By the Coyles were one night, another night was the county attorney's office. If they have a problem with the way you did your paperwork or your complaint, they sit down and talk to you about it and tell you how to do it better next time.
Excuse me, can you tell us what a legal update is?
We go through and learn about the new laws, or because they've now been assisting us, they can see where we're weak and we need more training, so they'll say, hey, this is where you need to work on a little more. Ask questions, is too many officers going to be, I'm losing my terminology. Is it going to be custody? Not custody. I can't remember the term. But having too many officers on scene, is that going to be bad for the case? Things like that. And case law constantly changes in the state of New Hampshire. So they help us with that. When we're aware, we make less mistakes. Obviously, time and effort saved is money saved. And again, the morale goes through the roof. In the past, we only had, if we had help, it was Monday through Friday. Now, we have help all the time. If something were to happen 10 o'clock tonight, I can call the Coyles, and they're going to answer my questions. The guys just did it the other night. They answered the questions, told them what to do, and it was fine. We've had incidents where we've already had the assistant county attorney will come out and help us. Major crimes has come out and help us. the coils. Kate's come out and helped me. And now we're going to be using them for our fatal motor vehicle accidents. In the past, that was something an officer always handled. This is just an example of how all of that together helps all the teamwork. In the past, all these things that you see on here, as far as the responsibilities, would be handled by the officers on duty. So if you had 2 officers on duty, one is most likely going to be concentrating on this, and the other one is going to help. But then if you have other calls for service, we had to try to figure out how to do that or to delegate mutual aid. And a lot of these things are time sensitive. If we have something on a Sunday night, it has to be at the court by 9 a.m. the next morning. And that's everything. That's complaints, it's affidavits. So it's a lot of work. We received tourniquets this year. It did not cost anybody anything. It was from our asset forfeiture fund. It was used this year where someone accidentally shot themselves and an officer applied the tourniquet. Constantly getting training and encouragement on carrying those.
Excuse me, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Can you just briefly explain what an asset forfeiture fund is for the people at home that might not understand?
Sure,
what
that would
is?
be for drugs or any other serious offenses, and we basically the government seizes their assets. So we had asset forfeiture funds from a prior case where we basically got the bad guy's assets because we put him out of business.
They get sold, and the department gets part of that money?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, less lethal weapon options. Before we only had 2. Now we have 4.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second before you go to, he has a question.
apologize.
No.
The asset one, is it usually cars? It's
No.
usually- No?
No.
It's actually,
In this case, it was, I think he sold houses, he had businesses.
Really?
Yeah, it was very significant and involved several other towns. And actually, our detectives started the investigation, and it grew all kinds of arms and legs and went all over the place.
wow,
So they did a great job.
thank you.
So you see before, we had pepper spray. Nobody likes pepper spray. Expandable baton, we refrain from using that because it actually causes a lot of injury when you use it. Now we have the taser, and we have a beanbag rifle. These are just a little bit about tasers compared to OC, or that's what we call it. If I go to the station right now and I pepper spray somebody in the booking room because we're fighting, the dispatchers are going to have watery eyes and start coughing. If I tase them, everything's going to be okay. Usually, and in my experience, the prongs have been coming out on their own because they haven't stopped fighting necessarily, and the prongs just get torn out when they keep fighting. And even if we're here right now and I was like, you're being bad, and I pepper sprayed you, you're probably going to all feel it. They just, it's not a very fun thing. And the reason we want all that is obviously to gain control when people are physically uncooperative with us, and to avoid going hands-on, because hands-on, the chance of being injured or killed are a lot higher. Again, 0 asset forfeiture for the tasers was just under $10,000, and with the equipment, the holsters and everything, another $2,300. This is just another example of it. Nobody was injured. The miraculous thing about this gentleman is we all thought he was under the influence of methamphetamine. He ended up just being mentally ill and having a break. This one just happened last month. An officer caught somebody breaking into a house at a residential alarm with a crowbar. The person, I will say it was female on female, thought she was significantly smaller. Get over here, you're under arrest, and it didn't turn out that way. They started fighting, an officer got there, tasered her, everything was good. Again, in this case, the taser got him to the ground. It didn't work after that. The OC spray worked. And again, no deadly force was used, even though he had a loaded gun. And nobody was injured, and now he's been sentenced to state prison. The beanbag shotguns, we modified our regular shotguns to beanbags. As you can see, they go a lot further up. So if we have somebody running from a serious incident, obviously I'm not going to use it for a minor incident. We can use that to stop them, or a suicidal subject instead of using use of force as far as lethal.
If you modify the shotguns for beanbags, can they still be used as shotguns?
No. All our shells, everything are out of the building, so there's no kind of confusion with that. And they're actually, I think they're bright orange or pink. Yeah. The AR-15 rifles, these are important, unfortunately, for school shootings and mass shootings. Hopefully, we never have to use them. Previously, we shared them. They were in the cruiser. We handled them twice a year. Now we have our own so that we can handle it if we need to move anything around, get ourselves comfortable with it. We all have it. We're ready to use it. I don't have to try to figure out how to get it out of the gun lock thing in the cruiser or how to even load it. Like, I can do my thing and get it all set up. Again, zero asset forfeiture, just under $7,000. And again, hopefully we never have to use those. Uniforms, they were specialty before with all the piping. It took a long time, it cost extra money. When I say a long time, it could be weeks. I don't remember the last time I ever got a piped uniform in a day, to be honest. And a lot of people don't understand is that when officers wear a white T-shirt under it, in law enforcement we call it the triangle of death, because the bad guys will aim for that so that they don't hit your vest. For years, we wanted to change that over. It costs nothing to wear a black T-shirt. That has happened, and that small thing boosts officer morale. We had choices on bulletproof vests. Now, the Molly vest, I know they take a hit. People think they're very SWAT and things like that, but there's a reason for them. They're breathable, and it brings everything up on your chest rather than on your hips and your back so that you don't get injuries or have long-term problems. There's a few other things. I never realized that swords down means defeat, and that was on our old patches. And it also memorialized Plaistow, England. So with Chief Mullen, he was like, we need to memorialize our own town. We have a beautiful building. Let's do that. No swords down. Our uniforms are now off the shelf. I can walk into a vendor in Haverhill, and I'll be out there in an hour with a new uniform. It's fantastic. All they do is hem my pants. Let's see. And we stopped with trustees. Trustees are a liability. They clean cruises, but most of the time they sat in the sally port and said, I'm bored. The officers were responsible for supervising them, making sure they ate, making sure they had things to do, making sure they went back to the jail, came, went, everything. That was all our responsibility. Lunches, they had up to $15 a day. It didn't matter if you had calls for service. Trustee had to be taken care of. He had to be brought back up. We got rid of that. Now we have governor's car wash, $9, 5 minutes, car gets washed. Same thing the trustee did. We no longer have that liability of having them in the building or sharing our information in Brentwood. Keeps people in town, yes, sir.
When trustees come down and do services around town, is that different?
Yes, they don't come to the police department at all.
Okay, so that's different.
Before they had a very,
Specific?
yes, in our old building, they roamed all over the place. In the new building, we kept them segregated a bit, but even then it wasn't fair to them because it was very cold and they would sit in the sally port. They didn't have access to be warm, basically, or water.
So if there are, I don't know, I'll take, weeding in town that's needed, would we still use trustees for something like that?
Yes, we still use the trustees, and they go directly to the location for the weed, and there, I believe there's at least one sheriff with them.
Yep.
And we provide the lunch and everything.
The county jail is responsible for
Yeah.
providing that? Okay.
Yeah. And that's not to say all the trustees are bad. We actually had some very good ones who did small machinery and things like that. But when you had a bad one, you knew it because they always put Armor All on the gas pedal and things like that. Make our lives miserable. Budget, it was zero. Donations were $955. I think I skimmed over Narcan. Narcan was donated by Trinity Ambulance, so we now carry that. I don't have numbers as far as how often we've used it. We kind of go by how often we have to replace it. Unfortunately, with the fentanyl that's out there and the strength of it, it takes more than one dosage these days to bring people back. But if an officer can give them Narcan and get them started, that's better than we used to have because we used to do CPR and sternum rubs until fire got there.
Are you seeing a decrease as the fire department?
I would say in fatal overdoses, yes, we have had a little bit of a decrease. As far as overdoses, I say yes, because there's a lot of Narcan out there, so people aren't calling us as often. But just like last month, we had someone overdose in a car driving down the street and landed in a snowbank. So we can't charge him with the giant bag of fentanyl he has in his pocket, but we charge him with DUI for that. And he was out cold in Narcan several times to come back, so.
Do officers have special, like, storage to carry it in, or is
Yes,
it
we have a
just-
little pack
Okay.
right on the back.
Thank you.
And this just shows the differences in the budgets and the cuts. And the reason for all of this, and I apologize if I spoke fast, I was just trying to get through it, was to show you that we're still functioning, we're doing very well, and we're making the most of it. As far as what we have, the officers are very happy. You give us the right things to do our jobs, and it's like a little kid on Christmas, so we're thankful for that.
The asset not even gonna, thank
Forfeiture.
you. Specific things that can be spent on? Is there
I know we can't go out and have lunch on it.
on it?
I know, like several years ago, it was used for, we
Can't buy
actually
dinner
got a television for the lunchroom. That was a very long time ago. Yeah.
Training can't be used for uniforms, can it?
No, we have our clothing allowance for that.
Yeah.
So,
no. Okay.
yeah. And it's being used for the things that we needed and we wanted and,
Yeah,
you know,
no, it makes,
that we pray we never have to use, but unfortunately.
In the whole budget, you never once mentioned the K-9 court. Is there a reason why it's not in the budget for the police?
You know?
Is in the budget for the police for 2020?
It's not in the packet. Is that where you're?
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, the cost of that is,
I don't know what the cost of that is. I know that it's the same services that we've had before.
Nothing has changed with the K-9 cost. In fact, we still have a little bit of the donation fund left from when we raised funds to pay for K-9. We've actually been able to withdraw from donation funds today.
So, Mr. Bracci, the recollection I have was that there was a fundraising, and the goal was 25,000, but I believe they raised something closer to 37,000. So
the
they,
initiation of it was.
yeah, so they bought a vehicle, and they bought a dog, and they paid for the training of the officer and the dog, and there is a balance left in there for K-9 purposes. So that vehicle was brand new. It was added to the fleet at no cost to the taxpayers through the donations, and there's still a surplus in there. Specifically, the K-9 wasn't part of this presentation because that's just an individual officer and a dog. It wasn't part of the
Part of the
budget.
police department.
It's part of the police department, but it's not part of the budget presentation. It's in the budget just like it has been for the last, number of years. It wasn't excluded or included for any reason. It's there, just like everything else is there.
Yeah, like the SRO isn't mentioned, but we have Pat Chavone's in the high school full-time, and Pat actually spends a lot of time over at the middle school. He's always going to Pollard, he's all over the place.
It's $2,000.
yeah, that's what I was just looking at, 2,000.
$2,000 is police department, K-9 supplies, food, annual health insurance, veterinarian bills, supplies, and training.
That is in the budget.
Yes.
Yep, that is.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you said it was a volunteer, it was a gift, but if it's in the budget, it's part of the budget, Mark, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so, back before I got here, or right around the time I got here, there was that donation, they raised the money, it was always in the budget. They used the money to buy the dog and to send the officer and the dog to Boston for the training. There always was a budget line item for food for the dog. That's still there. I don't know if there's another question there. I mean, it's always been in the budget, it always stayed in the budget. It is still in the budget now. We're not using, if your question is, we're not using donations to pay for the food for the dog, because that was not our understanding, that they were raising money to pay for the dog's food and so forth. We do have the leftover money in the donation account, and it's going to sit there until we have an appropriate expenditure for the remainder of the donation funds.
Dennis?
Is there a reason why there isn't an actual on that line? if I look back at 2017, 18, there's nothing there, 19, we don't have an actual on there.
Been spending it out of the donations directly.
So nothing has been spent out of that. Okay.
So they're taking it from there.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, Greg.
Can I ask you to comment on the general morale of the patrolmen that are on the beat since our current chief now became permanent?
It's a complete turnaround. I see people smiling that I've worked with for 8 years. I never saw them smile. We have a lot of support. To have serious incident and have your higher-ups ask you how you're doing, say, take a breather, don't worry about it, is phenomenal. To have the tools that you need, to have the coils. I don't know how they do it. Kate Coyle offered to help me with this. I'm like, that's beyond what she needs to do. It's sometimes you don't know how I don't want to be so negative, but it's just a complete turnaround. It's great. And I'm not just speaking, I've been a patrolman most of my career. Up until this year, I started helping out with administration. So I speak firsthand. It's completely changed. Completely changed. We have people who actually want to come work at our department.
I will say, the chief, to help sometimes avoid an officer being ordered in, will go out on patrol.
He's come in.
And he's done the evening shifts, and he's even come in for the midnight shifts to make sure, you know, that someone who's gonna be ordered in and lose their ETO doesn't have that effect.
I'm sorry, but when he first came, he also, when he found out an officer was going to be alone for the second half of the midnight shift, he came in and rode with them for the day. So,
Also, it appears that the prosecutor change has really been a good thing.
yes,
From a financial point of view and from a morale and
training.
operations point of view.
And they're also a great resource for us in the records department, with the right to know and stuff like that. They helped us out a lot.
That's terrific.
And the fact that they showed up on a Sunday, I was shocked.
Are they local?
What's that?
Are they local?
Actually, not
Portsmouth.
anymore, yeah.
Portsmouth?
But they come in.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great.
Great,
Yeah.
that's great.
This is great to hear, especially to hear all the accolades for the rest of your department here, everybody working well together. And not only did your budget not go up, but went down 5.5% or $118,000 is really, really good news sitting here.
It's good news for us, too.
Excellent to hear.
That also changes it for us. I mean, from a standpoint of just knowing that everybody's working, everybody's participating, everybody understands, we have what we need. I've said it a million times. It changes everything, so.
That's great.
And can I ask selfishly, sitting on the safety complex committee, how the building's holding up?
It's holding up very well. I love the surveillance cameras. They actually come in very handy. We just had someone who tried to, she said a lot of nasty things about us on social media
Oh, I
and
saw that.
posted pictures, and we have all the video. Like, nobody did anything. So she's gonna lose that one. But it's nice, we not only have the booking photo, but we also have all the video with her behavior and that nobody laid a hand on her, so.
Having the records windows and a dispatch window now has definitely alleviated some of the walk-ins for dispatch when they're trying to handle calls.
Yeah.
Because everything we talk about with the fire department too, they handle all of that for us. So,
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much. That was-
again, I apologize, I talked really fast.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're still running a little bit behind.
Presentations.
It was, excellent.
I have an item for final review and approval of department budgets, but unless anybody else wants to make any changes, we can skip that. No. Yep.
Right.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna do the public hearing. Did you want to speak towards public hearing?
It's unrelated to the public hearing, so whenever you like to do it. I just said one thing I wanted to know.
Okay, come on up.
It's budget related, but they should have worked.
sure you can't wait for this to end as much as I can.
We want to keep going, come on.
I didn't know if this is how it usually goes, but now that I'm like in the frying pan. I did get the updated copy from Greg today.
Yep.
So I'm looking at that, and I do understand where he, on this budget here, what he did with the 10,000. He took it away from the director's salary, which kind of makes sense, because we're not going to hire for that position probably at least until March, right? So I get that, where that 10,000 would come. But for the, under the part-time, which is for the summer rec help, if you remember, that was the one where I kept going back to say that line item, we should have it at 51, and it's still at 45, to make sure it's fully staffed.
Well, I think with the full-time rec director who was filling in for the summer rec, now that we have a full-time rec director and a summer rec director, there won't be that overlap, so that
Well-
extra money.
Well, we went without 2 positions last year
Yeah,
for summer rec, because Christina filled in at that point. So that would be for an assistant rec director and a staff member. And that's where the additional 6,000 would come in. Don't have a rec director in place now.
right.
Whether we, when that happens, I don't know. Obviously, we're advertising for that position now. So that's really the main thing. If we could get that's just that 6,000 put back in to make sure it's fully staffed, because there is a counselor to camper ratio that we do have to keep. And that would allow for that to be fully staffed. And that would really, and that's really the only line item, because I get where we came down another 10,000. I mean, if you look at, that still gives us a reduction from last year of like about $35,000 to $40,000 from the budget of last year.
Greg, can you speak to the Board of Selectmen, why you guys didn't, because we went off of what you gave us.
We basically put the director as a part-time position. That was the initial discussion. And then we did address the issue about the part-timers. And then after that, Steve Randlett made a motion to, instead of doing those changes, instead of just go with a same line items as last year.
Correct. And then I know we made the changes
So it
off of
could
that.
be that the $6,000 was lost in that process.
Right, exactly. And I think that's all it was.
Considerably less when we first started off, when we reduced the.
We're about $35,000 to $40,000 less than what the budget was last year, and that's still adding that 6,000 back in. We'd still be $35,000 to $40,000 less.
Correct.
So I think that's really the thing right there, is just that 6,000. If that gets put back in there, then that would be it, just to make sure that's fully staffed.
Lori and then Dennis.
So our bottom line number right now is 179,
313.
yeah.
All right, what's the page?
It's the.
separate sheet.
Oh, okay.
Can I make, oh, go ahead, Dennis, you were next.
What do you have for a bottom line right now?
Right now, looking at it, it's 179,313.
Okay.
From what I was given today.
And are we talking the rec director's salary? or
No,
are
no,
we
the part-time,
Rec
part-time.
department, part-time.
I understand why the rec director's salary,
Yep.
isn't level funded. It's
Yep.
10,000 less.
Yep.
Because by the time that position
Right.
gets filled.
The
So
salary.
I understand that. That makes sense.
The paper that I'm looking at, the 2019 budget was 42,138, and then what we approved was 42,138, so it didn't go up
I'm
or down.
a little confused, too. The request for 2020 is 45,000. The 2019 actual as of November, I don't have one later, was 4730.
They were down 2.
Right. And
So what was the end of year? Did you go over the 45? Is that why we're?
No,
you're
no.
at-
The reason we didn't use, we were budgeted for 53. The
Where is
reason we didn't use that whole 53 is because we went without 2 positions last year during summer rec. The
Okay.
assistant rec director and a full-time counselor. And we need to add those positions back in this year to make sure those are filled. And
why
that's
was the
why
re-
we would need 51 and not 45 on that line item.
Could you not fill those positions? Is that why? Why weren't those filled? I guess.
Because Christina, we had the rec director, it took away from other activities she did, as she filled in for those.
Okay.
And that was the reason.
So what would be the difference if you have a full-time rec director?
If there's a full-time rec director,
Right.
they should be doing other activities, not fully be up there.
Okay. Okay.
And there's supposed to be, I don't have the ratio in front of me, but there is supposed to be a certain ratio of counselors to campus.
I get it. Yep.
What do you have for the rec director salary?
What we have right now for what was approved was 32,138.
Because I have 42,138.
Yep.
Right, that's not what I have.
Okay, so that, if you have an extra 10,000 there, we don't need to adjust the part-time.
Correct.
That's
If
right.
you want to put that back up to 42.
That's what
Is-
we have it.
We have it at
as
42.
So is your bottom line, though? What's your bottom line?
I said 137.
179,313, but the 10,000 is coming out of the revolving fund to fund programming. So that's where that 10,000 comes from.
But it's not, from what I'm seeing here, maybe Greg can help. I see the approval that gets to the 179, I see that for the rec director at 32,138. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's wrong.
It must be an old one. In your column for year-to-date, what do you have for actual for the month in parentheses? I'm just wondering what,
For rec director?
in the heading. The heading that says 2019 actual, right under it, it says year-to-date with parentheses.
November?
Yeah, that's the one I have too. And the Board of Selectmen approved number is 42,138.
Yeah, because I see 32,138.
Yeah, that's wrong.
So the 10,000 he's talking.
Right, it's
which-
there instead of there.
Which line should have that came?
There's no line.
There's no line, we're using
line,
it
Right.
to
just the
fund.
bottom line.
Basically, a bottom line adjustment.
But what gets confusing, when I'm looking, I see the 179, but then when I see everything, I'm still seeing 32. So if you're saying the extra 10 should be there, shouldn't that number be
Well, so the
189?
bottom line we had without the 10 was 189,313. That's our bottom line. So
Correct.
then we're taking 10,000 from the revolving fund to fund programming.
Right. It's
Right,
not,
and that was another thing we had with,
I don't
spoke with
believe that
Greg.
you can just take $10,000 and say it's going to come from programming out of the revolving fund.
It needs to be to a line.
It needs to be a self-support.
That's what I'm
The programming is a self-supporting, the revolving fund is used for self-supporting programs.
Correct. So we wanted to take it out of baseball.
Baseball is not a self-supporting program. It is, in my opinion, that you can't just take baseball out of there. And then you, what are you going to do? Use up the revolving fund, and then once that's used, you're gonna come back to the general fund?
We only wanted to take 10,000 to offset some of the costs.
So you can pick multiple items from the budget that are programs.
Correct.
But you're
Baseball is
picking-
not one of them, but you could get $10,000 from a few of these. Like, for example, it's senior programs, community events, are those things, could those things be done by revolving fund?
Well, money has to come in to offset what goes out. Right?
The revolving fund is for revenue-generating, self-supporting programs.
Well, there's cost here associated with some of these programs, correct?
Are they revenue-generating?
I don't know.
What programs are you specifically referring to?
where's the definition you got from DRA that said it's all
NHMA.
programming can be funded
Yeah,
from that?
it was in our folder
Right,
a few
couple of
weeks
weeks
ago.
ago.
Printed
That's what
out
started
from
this.
NHMA.
We're not just randomly trying to pull
And he
money out of
said that
programs.
any programming in recreation, it's to be utilized for programming and
He
recreation.
said all. He said all programming.
Except with the original intent of the warrant article back in 2004
Lori,
was very specific as to what was.
it said not for summer rec.
Right.
This isn't summer rec.
Let Laurie speak.
Lori?
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah. So it's not being taken out of summer rec. This programming that recreation offers and takes in a cost.
And let me fast forward, so you want to move baseball over there. Right now, baseball and softball are not self-supporting. So they either have to raise the fees and hit participation, or you're gonna use up all of that money that is in the rec revolving fund, and then what would you do at that point?
We only wanted to take a portion to offset the costs.
It was perceived that the revolving fund was becoming like a savings account, that it was not being utilized for its intent. And it wasn't like just a little cushion or like $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 as a cushion. It was going up in the high 30s and 40s. That's a lot of cash.
I don't disagree with that.
Right. So I think the intent, if I get what Max was saying, the intent is to drain some of that off, not to deplete it, but to drain some of that off and then apply it to programs. And you're saying that other than baseball, the other programs that are on here can be used?
And I have the email, I'll have to get it printed out again, but it was in our folders, and it was from Natch Grays, I believe you spoke to him before too.
Okay.
And he said it can be used for all recreation programs.
Okay, so if there are programs on here, maybe Bill can assist. It would be helpful if we took that 10,000 and draw it off of a couple of these lines.
There's, if I'm correct, there's $42,000 in that account?
It's like
Yeah,
39,
right. No,
about
what I'm
39,000,
saying-
something like that, and
What I'm
change.
saying is, if you, the 10,000 that you want to deduct, which is a bottom line
Someone
adjustment
needs to
right
figure
now,
out where that,
pick a
we can
couple
put
of
10,000 of that.
programs and
Right,
reduce them there.
yeah, John.
You turn to the last page to the stuff I handed out. I didn't make a PowerPoint. Oops. I didn't make a PowerPoint, just an ugly old document. Sorry about that. The title of it is Recreation Revolving Fund History. Everybody got that page?
Yes.
I went back through the town reports back to the year 2004 and looked up the balance of the Recreation Revolving Fund, and I found some discrepancies that I think need to be looked into. At the last minute, I've asked Greg to take a look at it, but it's kind of a busy time of year for him, so that, of course, didn't go to the top of his to-do list. But if you look, starting in 2006, the beginning balance was 17,000, right? And there was deposits of 13,000, withdrawals of 17,000, and an ending balance of 13,000. That's what you would expect to see in the revolving fund. Pretty level, goes up, goes down by approximately the same number. So you can see, looking at those ending balances for the first 5 years, first one's 13,000, next is 10,000, next is 12,000, next is 12,000. So down to that year of 2010, Recreation Revolving Fund looks just like you would expect it to. Pretty level, goes up, goes down. Then, starting in 2010, things start to look a little different. There was a huge deposit made in 2010. I have no idea what that is. I'm only going by what's in the town report, actually in the treasurer's report of the town report. And then different things happen. Then the ending balance the next year goes up to 33, next year it goes up to 47, next year it goes up to 53. And if you look in the withdrawal columns, for 3 consecutive years there, basically there were no withdrawals made. Right. So you're right, the Recreation Revolving Fund is building up. Then it starts to go down. If you look at, let's jump down to 2014. It starts off at the 53,000, which is what it was at the end of the previous year. Then deposits of 4,000, but then withdrawals of $25,000. It almost looks like somebody was trying to catch up by withdrawing such a large amount. I'm speculating, I don't know. And then you can see for the last few years, it's been a little erratic. The one I would ask you to look at is 2016. If you look at that line and go across to the comment section or the section on the right, look at that. On October 24th, 2016, the balance was moved to the general fund.
But it's still accounted for separately, right?
Not according to the treasurer. The only source document I can go by, I know Greg's got access to a lot
The
more.
audit report also.
But the only thing I can go by is the town report, and these are from the last 16 town reports. And the one that really jumps out is 2016, where it looks like, this is a note, an asterisk note from the treasurer's report, if you want to refer back to the 2016 town report that I'm sure you're carrying with you. And then 17 and 18, the details are not available in the town report. It's not in the treasurer's report at all.
I found it in the auditor's report.
There could be, and I'm sure there's other documents that say other things. That's why I keep saying, all I had to go by was the town report. I typed up this document. You're welcome to a copy of it, but it certainly looks like it needs to be adjusted. I've asked Greg to do it, and like I say, I only asked him at the last minute, and he's got a lot of other things to do. Actually, I asked the town manager more specifically, and he said, ask Greg.
Go ahead. Everybody's got
So good luck with straightening all that out.
Okay, who had their hand up first? Pete?
Pete can go first.
Isn't it still a fact that there's $41,000 in the revolving fund today?
I have,
$40,000.
what we got from you, I believe, from the rec is it says 39.
Yeah, as of November 9th,
10,
it was
19.
39,000.
Yep.
What my big thing is, I'm just trying to figure out
Where's it going?
the budget and the right thing for me to do. Oh, that's what I'm gonna try
Yeah,
to figure out.
so getting back to his 10,000, yes, that 10,000
Yeah.
should be there. I was only mentioning this because the revolving fund kept coming up. My advice would be, personal advice would be, stay away from it until we can get it balanced out to what's really there.
Well, we have the balance as of November 9th. I don't think anything has changed. It was
Where'd you get, and
39,000.
where's that from?
I emailed as a budget committee, the finance director, and he sent it to me.
That it was that number?
Yes,
39.
it was on November 9th. The budget committee had an email sent to them.
That's
so
great.
That's what's in there. So that's why we decided 10,000. We didn't want to deplete it all the way. I believe that was Dennis's suggestion. Go ahead.
I guess I'm going to go back to my comment when we first started to discuss this way back when. I agree with taking money under the revolving fund. My issue goes back to, we don't have a rec director. We have somebody acting as a rec director who is a volunteer. And it just seems to be a lot of confusion around how we can spend this money, what it can be spent on. And I think you're putting a lot on somebody who's a volunteer in this town as a rec director to be looking at this. I think it's something that definitely needs to be looked at, but I'm just not comfortable putting it on somebody who is a volunteer in the town and who really didn't step up to this position, but was, in my words, forced into it. So that's where I'm coming from, so.
Lori?
The job is also posted on the town website now to fill the position, so we are looking.
Yep.
So, so the person that is responsible for this is the rec director?
Correct.
Not the Recreation Commission?
Correct.
So she is responsible for making sure that the funds are being collected and also being utilized. Is that correct?
Right.
And the Rec Commission has nothing to do with any of that?
No, we're not town employees, so we can't move money around. We don't have access to see money come in, money come out. We don't have that. We're not elected. You know, we're not employees. What the commission, we try to make sure the programs keep going, how we can enhance programs.
You're responsible more for the strategic
Right.
versus the tactical
Right,
running.
exactly.
Do we know if there's a guideline for the use of those funds for the rec director to
Follow.
follow, to utilize?
Should be something.
The second note I have on my document I didn't hand out is need a policy and procedure on how to handle revolving funds. I don't think this is a situation where any money's been lost or misappropriated. I just think there was a time it might not have been accounted for correctly. That's why my suggestion would mine, not the rec commission, would be, I wouldn't do anything with that revolving fund until we got this straightened out. Maybe it'll be by deliberative session and you can get a right number. And when, I know the general idea of revolving funds, it's for, he's gonna sponsor a trip, elderly trip to Algonquin. You know, you need to buy tickets up front, so you go to the revolving fund, take the money out to buy the ticket, right? You can spend that money in anticipation of getting receipts back in to offset that, right? So whatever it is, $50 times 10 people, $500, that's what you collect, that's what you pay for the tickets, and then as the ticket money comes in, it offsets that. It's in general going to be a wash unless you got a couple extra people. That's what it's meant to be for. Like getting into baseball, I'm not going to offer an opinion, but it doesn't sound like what I think the intention of a revolving fund was for. And that's an unexperienced
I just want to reiterate what I got from legal at NHMA. The purpose of the revolving fund created under RSA Chapter 35B is to collect all the monies involving the Recreation Department and use those monies to fund everything that the Recreation Department does. In other words, all those fees should be collected into the revolving fund, and the revolving fund should be utilized to pay for equipment, programming, etc.
Pay for everything. I've never heard that before.
That's from NHMA.
Well, that doesn't make it right. Okay.
I know the town uses them for legal positions. Lori, Dennis.
Well, I was just going to say, even if you're not a town employee, if you're on a board or a commission, like I was on Old Home Day last year, I asked the finance director for a detailed expense report so we could know how much we were spending on certain things. So, I mean, that's something you can ask for, and I'm sure the.
Over certain things, like how we doing with this line item, how
Right,
that, didn't
right.
get into the minutia of it or anything like that.
But he,
Obviously not.
but he will provide information, so, yeah.
Dennis.
So I'm going to throw this out and see where we go with this. I'm just sitting here, there seems to be a lot of confusion with the revolving fund and cutting the 10,000 out. Is there a way that we could come to an agreement here and add the 10,000 back in and look at our finance director? And as we go forward, develop a plan, let's say, once we get through, I understand this is this busy season, develop a plan on how we're gonna use that 10,000 over the next year so we can have a decrease in this budget. Am I making sense?
Are you making a motion?
No,
or-
I'm
oh,
just throwing it out for discussion.
okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
Greg and
Okay, so that doesn't seem to be the job of the finance director. It really is the job of the rec department. And right now, we have a strategic direction coming from the commission, and I would expect that basically a procedural manual, a procedural set of documentation would be something that you would require of the new rec director. But I still don't have an issue with what Max is saying. We took out $3,000 from the senior transportation. Why can't you, if you want to take $10,000 off of that revolving fund and apply it to a couple of line items? I don't get it. Why does this seem to be so hard? We should be able to take that money off, and then those programs, instead of raising new taxes, the revolving fund monies could be used.
Yes, Greg.
The problem is you're picking and choosing, first of all.
Okay.
Second of all, what you're not seeing is the revenue side of this. So if you decide that you want to take baseball, for instance, and say, we're going to take that $10,000 out of the revolving fund, there's also $8,000 or $9,000 of revenue on the revenue side that is related to baseball and related things. So that's going to come out. You got to move that too, I'm assuming.
Well, isn't-
So you're taking away now money that is helping the revenue side. So in other words, the net effect of all of this back and forth
Yeah.
might be $1,000 or $2,000 on the overall picture.
So you're saying on these budget lines, the budget line represents both the cost to run the program plus the fees that were going to be collected?
Well, the fees are on the revenue side, which you guys are dealing with the appropriation side. So if you're telling me you want to move baseball over, then I'm saying you can't deposit all of the baseball fees and the donations for baseball and leave that in the general fund and then move all the expenses over to the revolving.
I don't think I said that.
But you didn't say that.
Oh,
But-
okay.
So I'm just adding more to this discussion.
Yeah.
That you want to decrease the budget by 10,000 for baseball. What I'm saying is we're also going to decrease the revenue side by 8,000 or 9,000. So the net effect that you're affecting the tax rate by is about $1,000.
So
So
let me.
spread out over.
Let me ask that question one more time, because I don't think I got it clear. As an example, this $11,213 for baseball, does that represent new taxes raised to pay for an expense item, or are you saying that revenue is included in that $11,000?
Revenue is used to offset the 11,000.
I get it, but do you understand what I'm saying? Are
No,
we
I don't.
raising $11,000 in new taxes to pay for baseball?
No.
Okay, so then that $11,000 includes, it's a budget line for revenue and expenses.
No, you have a revenue pot over here, you have an expense pot over here. You need to gross appropriate. So you raise $11,000 of what the program is gonna cost.
Okay.
But it is offset by
Okay.
$8,000 of revenue. So the net effect that you're raising through taxes is $3,000.
I follow you.
Now, looking at the revenue, the decision was made by the selectmen to move the summer trips.
Yep.
Or the trips. That raised into the general fund $3,000, so that's a complete wash.
Because
So
there was
that
no,
revenue's coming out.
because there was no revenue from that.
There's $2,900 of trip revenue into the general fund. But there's also almost $8,000 of baseball revenue registrations that goes into the general fund. So the net effect on the
I follow.
taxes money that you are raising is $2,000 over $1 billion of assessment. It's not even a penny. It's a 1/10 of 1 penny that we're talking about here. Just throwing that out.
So revenue, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
don't want to get too off track because we still have to do the public hearing, so I'd like to wrap this up if there's a vote.
Okay, well, I'm looking at this for the first time, John, and I thank you very much for it, but there are some anomalies that I just don't understand it. I wonder if the board would like to get them to be understood, like why was the big withdrawal in 2014? And there's no numbers in 2017 and 2018, and there was no deposit in 2016.
Yeah, there's,
Those are some questions that it doesn't intrigue me. I'm saying, what's going on? The money is just being thrown around left and right, and there's no answers.
well, there's like 6 of those. I basically agree with what you're saying, Peter. I don't think I'd say things are being thrown around and there are no answers. We just haven't gotten to the answers yet. I mean, my research didn't have any intention other than I was just trying to gain information. And as I went through these, I went, what, this doesn't make sense. There's a beginning balance in one month, but there was no ending balance the previous month. I don't think anything bad is happening. We just need someone with some exquisite financial skills to go in and just look through the history and report back what is done. It looked like it was working fine for 5 or 6 years, right? It was staying level, made sense. And then at some point, there were a few different things that happened. Like they took a lot of money out one year and they put a lot of money in next year. You're not going to resolve it here, no way. So you need to get to some point of moving on. That's why I brought it up to the town manager, who was at the Recreation Commission meeting, and he said, of course, I don't know, we'll check with Greg. So I've contacted Greg, and again, he hasn't had time to look through it, but I spoke to him right before the meeting, and you could see his eyes light up with his little financial auditor hat on, and he'll figure it out. There'll be no question. He'll figure it out, and I don't think there'll be any permanent damage. All I'm saying is me personally would try to avoid any permanent damage by, hey, let's hold off a year until we get this straightened out and we can answer people's questions. But that's not my call.
Greg, and then.
Okay, so before we can apply the $10,000, we would need to know those programs that raise less revenue than they are costing. And we don't have that data. We don't have that data. So by looking at these numbers, if I understand what Greg has been trying to explain to me, we're raising taxes and then replacing it with the fees that we are charging. So if all of these programs turn out to be zero, they raise the same amount of revenue as that we pay in taxes, there's nothing to apply the revolving fund to.
But that, well.
Is that correct?
People were ahead of
Yeah,
that.
Lori, and then Dennis.
Well, I was just going to say, 179, our population hasn't really increased, and actually our student population has decreased. So I think 179 is a good amount for the recreation budget.
Dennis had his hand up, and then.
So I'm going to I think our rec programs have increased, but to that. Bill, you came in saying you thought you were $6,000
Right.
short.
The 6,000 is so we can fully staff some of that.
So are we ready for me to make a motion?
Jay had his.
Okay, all right.
I just want to clarify one point, like recreation isn't just for students, it's for all citizens, so.
I didn't say it was just for students.
Or the student population
I said our
is lower,
population,
but
our general
recreation,
population has not really increased.
But our elderly has increased in the rec program.
but recreation isn't just for students, it's for,
I understand that.
John.
I'm upset with myself that I didn't go back and look at it, but as my wife and I were going through this, I didn't do all this work. She did most of it, of course, was that she was looking through an old town report. I forget what year it was, and she said, oh, look, the budget for the recreation department was almost exactly $175,000, and it was from 10 or 12 or 15 years ago.
Sam, did you have
No,
something?
what I was gonna say is, you said the differential is $6,000?
Yeah.
And there's $39,000 in an account that can go there somewhere. Someone just needs to figure out where it can go. No, you're not gonna not get it.
No, I just want to know how to do everything.
Right.
And I want to do it right.
Revolving fund cannot be used.
That's my big thing. I just don't think we have that right, so there's no repercussions.
None of
So
us
we
can
don't
tell
need
you
to
how
throw
to
more money
operate
at
it.
it, just let him figure out where to,
Mark.
where he can
Summer
take,
rec.
put it.
Are they talking?
Mark.
Okay,
Yep.
just a clarification or a point, not to find fault, but because it's confusing, I do know that the summer recreational revolving, the revolving fund cannot be used for summer rec.
Right, we already said that.
Okay, so before there was a motion made to take anything from the revolving fund for rec, I wanted to just make sure that
I
you
just
know
read
that you
what-
can't do that.
I just read what NHMA said to me about how revolving funds
The
work.
problem with NHMA, I'd have to ask you if you specifically showed them our warrant article from, I believe, 2004, to show them what the intent of the revolving fund was when they established it, so that they could give you a specific answer. Perhaps they didn't know that there was language in there, an intent in there, that you can't use it for the summer rec program, and perhaps they thought a revolving fund is a revolving fund, and you can use it for A, B, and C. But in this case, when they wrote the article, and correct me if I'm wrong, it specifically said not to be used for the summer rec program. So that's a nuance.
So, to your point, are you insinuating that there's nowhere else in the $179,000 budget where we can take, or he can take, or whoever's running the program can take $6,000 from? All there is summer rec where it can come from? It sounds like that's what you're saying, or you're just making sure?
No, I'm just making the point that if you were gonna start looking at the 39,000 in the revolving fund, don't make an assumption you can use that to supplement the 6,000 for the summer rec program, because you can't.
Yeah,
No,
she said
we
earlier,
said
except summer
programming.
rec.
Okay.
Yeah.
Program, except summer.
Yeah.
Yep. Bob, I just want to move this along. We have the public hearing to do, so.
I don't want to add to the confusion here, but there is also a question as to the intent of a warrant article. If it doesn't state it in the warrant article, then the intent should have no bearing on it legally. I just wanted to throw that out, not to confuse things,
Yep.
but just to make that comment.
So are you making a motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Try to get this over with. I'm going to make a motion to add an additional 6,000 to the rec department budget. And for a bottom line total of
83?
Excuse me, Dennis.
What?
Excuse me.
You're gonna ask me
Would that be on the part-time line item?
Yes, on the
That'd
part-time.
be very helpful. if it was on the
Part-time.
line item.
Rec part-time position, an extra
Thank you.
6,000 for a bottom line figure of 185,313. Do I have that correct?
84, I think, no? 80, 84.
85.
85, yeah, 6,000.
59,157 for that line item,
Yes, the new bottom line.
6,000 more.
Yep. So the bottom line would be 185,313.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I don't think we need to discuss it anymore.
Question,
Okay.
all right, but is,
Part-time rec.
Okay, thank you.
are we any closer to hiring or is there any estimate as to when the likelihood of hiring?
No.
No.
Deadline for the applications is the 24th.
And we still have that fully funded. And
Well,
we're all,
according to the one I'm looking at now, it's not.
Yeah, that's
Down-
wrong.
it's down 10,000. But I'm just
Right.
saying,
Yeah.
it's-
correct, but I'm
so
saying,
that's where the 10,000 difference is
okay,
coming in.
my point is, we already have the rec director fully funded for the entire year, correct? So we've already benefiting from, I don't want to say benefiting, but we already have some excess in that account.
You do, but the 10,000, what's missing is you're gonna take out of baseball. Now, if baseball goes back in, there's your 10,000. There's, you know, right?
I don't think we're taking
That's
anything
well,
out.
I'm going by, from what I believe what Greg did, is he kept baseball the same, and that 10,000 that you wanted to reduce, he took it out of the rec director's salary. That's why I'm seeing it 32 and not 42.
Okay, so we have.
Can we call the question?
Yeah, call the question. So second was Jay. So all those in favor of adding 6,000 back into the part-time rec line item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So it was 270. So that stays the same for what, it's 179,313 is the bottom line.
So if I need $6,000, then I can just go in the revolving fund and take it?
There's,
No.
no, there's programming in the budget that we
Right,
have to
so-
find out what the revenue is and make that work, balance out,
Needs to find out where he can put it.
right?
You know where you can get it, you gotta find out where you can put it.
Right, and so if I take it from baseball, so now here comes another thing. We're into registrations now for baseball. So there's, registrations have already come in.
Yep,
Where does that money go?
general fund, because they closed out the revolving fund to be well, they didn't close it out, but they moved it to the general fund, but that money's still earmarked for recreation purposes.
It's not. If it goes in the general fund, it goes into the general fund, correct?
There's subcategories in the general fund that Greg can explain. There's special accounts and there's different accounting in the general fund.
Because when I have to go to Martha downstairs and say, here's where you need to put that money for those registrations. What do I say?
Well, I'm going to defer to Greg.
I mean, I'll give you one of my deposit slips if you want.
Well, Mark explained it the other night on a different subject, and it was, there's a big pot.
Yep.
All the money goes in the big pot, but if someone's keeping a list of where that money can go.
But I want to make sure, my big thing is I want to make sure it gets done right.
Right.
Because eventually we're going to turn around and I'm
So
going to
there's
say,
not a,
I
there's not a,
can't do this, I can't do
there's not
that.
100 checkbooks. There's one giant checkbook, and they just keep a ledger of what money belongs where. That's how,
I don't think your finance director will agree with that.
oh, I'm oversimplifying it, I know that.
I can see him cringing.
So we voted on that, so that's what it is, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I'm just saying, so.
I wish I had the answers
I
to
know,
help you,
that's,
but
I guess the question, with those registrations, where do I
So,
put that money?
General funds. Fund 1, general fund. There is one cash account that is divvied up between a lot of the funds. That is why, Mr. Sherman, when you see in 2016, they made the conscious effort to close out the police outside detail cash account, that disappeared around the same time, the recreation, but for investment purposes, it was combined into one cash account. But then by software, the use of the software, I track it separately into separate funds. So Fund 40 is the police outside and fire outside detail fund, Fund 80 is the recreation fund. So even though you say the money goes into the general fund, it goes into the cash account, but is divvied up into more than one fund. So I can print out a Fund 80 for 17, 18, and 19 and give you your numbers for, you know, that spreadsheet there. It is not, I come from an auditing background. You just can't take revenue from the general fund and just say, oh, now we're gonna just decide that it's going over to Fund 80. To me, you gotta make, the Board of Selectmen have to make that decision, and/or you're taking revenue out of the taxpayers' pockets. So I think you could get a legal opinion too that says you have to go to town meeting before you change the intent of the revolving fund. That if this is how it's been operated, there is a certain expectation that is being operated this way. You just can't make a change to how it's being operated when something's been voted on by the governing body.
Makes sense.
so does the line item come off of this budget, the $10,000? Sounds like it does.
I thought we were just decreasing the bottom line by $10,000.
It's basically,
That's what,
remember when we first discussed this, I said, it really needs to be on a line item, because they're gonna say, well, where does that come off of?
well, it's still a bottom line.
Figure that out.
Yeah, it's still a bottom line budget. Yeah, Pete.
I got a question, Greg. When the revolving fund was put into the general fund, well, first of all, the revolving fund was basically for recreation, correct?
When you say it was put into the general fund,
Well, in 2016,
the cash was combined.
Okay, but, okay, first of all, the rec fund, the revolving fund is basically to be used for recreation. Is that correct?
For self-supporting programs.
All right, so then when it was put into the general fund, was it then used to maintain or meet our unassigned fund balance as part of that?
No.
So it wasn't in the general fund reserve fund?
It has never been part of the general fund unassigned fund balance. You have a cash account that might have $100,000 in it. $80,000 is the general fund, $20,000 is the recreation. For investment purposes, the cash is in one common cash account.
Okay.
But it is tracked separately through the BMSI software, through the use of interfund balances, due tos and due froms.
So it has nothing to do with the unassigned fund balance?
Absolutely nothing.
Thank you.
So when I go to, say, purchase uniforms this year, I'm purchasing them using the revolving fund money?
No, you've got, you've taken it out of your budget.
But when you get to the point, when the budget's gone, then where do I go?
It's up to the recreation director. It'll be that person's budget.
You guys want my resignation now?
They'll find it someplace else in another budget, right? That's,
But what I'm saying is, if you go through that's the issue I have. If I end up needing 184,000, the budget's only 179, right? But you're telling me I can get the 6,000 from the revolving fund.
I'm telling you, you have it. I don't know
Yeah.
how you can get it. That's
That's,
beyond my pay scale.
You'd have to look
I'm
what,
saying, that's the problem I'm having.
How much money was left?
I understand.
we can't.
I don't have the answer for you.
Yeah, I don't know, it just doesn't make
I
a lot
don't
of
agree
sense.
on just throwing more money at something else because you don't know how to get money from the other place.
I don't know, I'm just,
How much was left
I'm
over?
trying to get this whole thing.
Yeah,
corrected.
I understand.
We talked to Larry, it was like, let's keep it the kind of the way it is, let's figure this out so we do it right the following year. Now we're just kind of
Like the surplus.
tossing it and say, we'll figure it out as we go. It just doesn't seem like a good plan. It seems like there is no plan, to be honest. There is no plan.
How much
I'm
was
looking
left?
for an answer, and I'm not getting one.
I can't read it.
So we're basically collecting revenue
From the
these
recreation.
programs, and that's being deposited into the revolving fund.
No, it's not.
It's
It is
13,000.
being
of the-
deposited into the general fund, but is being assigned to the revolving fund. Then, as John's report showed, there were expenditures from the revolving fund. Some of them, some years, very, very significant costs.
Right.
There must be accounting there to show what those expenses,
Well, the way it's always been, like for
Were.
summer rec registrations, baseball, goes to the general fund, not into the revolving.
well, okay, when we're talking about baseball is the one that's separate,
Okay,
okay? But the other events, for example, if you have a community event and you're charging people money, that money is going into the revolving fund. And on John's list, there's some sizable expenditures from the revolving fund. Now, it's not our expertise of what the rec department does, what those expenses are, but it certainly should be able to be looked up of what kinds of things were drawn out of the revolving fund. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what Greg's gonna do.
Mark, did you have something to add, or?
Yes. In the 2019 recreation budget, there was $13,000 left over at the end of the year. In the baseball line item, it was underspent by $400. If I can just make a suggestion, we can sit here all night long and talk about what if this and what if that and so forth. At the end of the day, it's one of the smallest budgets in the town. There's much bigger ones out there. We're going to get through the budget, the recreation budget, and there's things that will be underspent and things that will be overspent. It depends on how many people sign up for baseball or how many people don't sign up for other programs. We can't predict what that is. A budget is a plan for the next year. You have a budget right now that's $179,000. You tried to increase it by $6,000, the motion failed. You're at $179,000. Why not just move on? We're gonna manage the budget, and we're gonna get things done. We can come up with 5 more examples of what if this and what if that, but we're not gonna solve anything tonight.
Yep, I agree.
So I hate to, it's your meeting, but.
No, I know. I
But, you know,
was
you
trying to
want to
move
stay, you want to stay here till midnight and talk about recreation?
No, I don't.
I mean, we're going to get through it, you know, and we're talking about the inter-funds. There's no misappropriation of funds. The funds are accounted for. We're going to get through this next year. You know, I mean, I just don't understand why we just keep on beating this dead horse.
Thank you, Mark.
Ask Bill real quick. Came up about the capital reserve fund deposit for the recreation department as a warrant article. We didn't know of any plan for that?
I didn't even know there was gonna be a warrant article.
Okay,
The BOS voted to remove it.
okay. We voted
gone.
against it.
It's gone.
so
It's a
fine,
moot point.
good.
We're not gonna
Yeah.
discuss
I
it.
didn't know there was gonna be one on there this year.
I just
There
wanted to
isn't.
make sure.
There
Thank you.
isn't.
Good.
Did anybody ask?
I asked last week, but
Did anybody ask the rec department?
that's what I was trying to find out, and I didn't get an answer.
He didn't ask.
I didn't know, that's why I asked.
Like a lot of things, there's things that moved around, we weren't get the best of. I kinda had to figure it out from watching stuff.
This is
Which
CIP.
wasn't really right, but that's the way, I guess it works. It's very frustrating, that's all I'm saying. It makes it hard to wanna continue to volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open, does anybody else want to revote any other budget? I think
I'd
we
like
should
to,
just
present what I was going to present,
For, what are you presenting on?
the handout that I gave you, recreation issues.
I don't have anything on the agenda for specific presenting recreation. I just have to get to the public hearing, so everybody has the information. They can review it, and then we can contact you if we have any questions. But I don't think it really pertains to the budget right now, the public hearing.
Wow,
What?
wow.
I'm sorry, it's 8 o'clock. Public hearing was supposed to be at 7.
Doesn't look like it's causing much of a backlog of people.
But I mean, we have budget-related public comment. We have somebody here from the public.
I already called for,
We haven't had it all year, and now we have somebody who's here.
I
and
did
we're
call for
gonna tell them-
budget related. I called
I
for
don't
budget
think we
related.
did.
We did, I did.
No one,
Okay.
everyone shook their head.
She called at the beginning,
I did.
She did.
Thank you.
Okay.
and I did not realize that was the section that
Okay.
was, so when I asked later on, she said,
Can I ask,
come on
John,
up.
what it pertains to? Is this something you,
It probably pertains to what it says on the cover sheet, recreation handouts. I've got about 6 or 7 handouts. I am not here to ask for any changes in the budget. I'm just presenting information that I thought you would find useful, like the question Dennis just asked about the capital reserve fund for recreation. There's a little bit of information in here about that. It would take as long as you want. I could do it in 5 minutes or
take a
longer.
consensus if you want? I don't,
Okay.
I'm not
I'll
opposed to it,
take
but.
a
I mean,
consensus
there's-
if you wanna,
There might be people here that don't want to stay. It's up to
Yeah.
them.
Is there a consensus of the board to hear the additional information? We already voted on the recreation budget, so I'm not really sure what else, what other information.
Well, we could start and see what you think.
Is there a consensus?
I've made my point.
Dennis, anybody else wanna? I mean, we can get through the public hearing, and if you wanna stay and add information if people aren't ready to go home. Greg, did you have anything? No.
At your meeting, I'll do whatever you'd like. All I'm saying is I don't think it will be that long, and I think it would be very informative, and I'm not asking for any changes in the budget, just
Can you do the
present.
Cliff Notes version, like super quick?
How long do you want me to take?
No more than 10 minutes,
Oh,
please.
easy. Okay, so the cover sheet says recreation handouts, January 15th, 2019. So there are attached a number of documents, all related to recreation. You may have seen them, you may not have seen them. So the first 2 pages are the recreation strategic plan. I know I've heard people ask, what's the scope of the recreation capital reserve fund, for example. So the first 2 pages are what is included in the recreation strategic plan. The second page has the 15 items that are currently listed in that strategic plan. We'll be meeting the Recreation Commission will be meeting shortly, whatever that means, February, March timeframe perhaps, to review the strategic plan and see if it needs any changes. Okay? Yours to keep. Next document says financial sheet explanation. These are some notes that we have made for ourselves and are quite willing to share with the Budget Committee and the Selectmen. It's for the next 2 documents coming up, but first one, impact fee funds appear sporadically and cannot be planned, so all future projects are projected to come from the Capital Reserve Fund. Whenever impact fees can be used, they will be. I know we've had that conversation in the past. We want to use up the impact fees. Future impact fee revenue is estimated at $22,000 per year based on history. I went back to the 5 years previous, and the impact fee revenue averages out to $22,000. Future capital reserve fund deposit estimated at $25,000 per year based on history. That's been the plan for a while, that we'd put away $25,000 each year. And for the purpose of this report, future capital reserve accounts and impact fees are combined into one fund. So I didn't split up all the revenue into impact fees go here, capital reserve fund goes here, put it in one fund, and then we'll split it out as we use it.
Ask a quick question.
Sure.
The 2 years that the capital reserve fund didn't pass as a warrant article, how
I
do
think
you?
there was only 1 year.
Was it 1 year, 2?
I know, no, Francine mentioned it to me that it was 2. It's not, it's 1.
It didn't pass last year, right? Was last year the first
It
year?
wasn't, I don't believe it was on the warrant.
It didn't pass last year.
It didn't pass last year.
Didn't pass last year.
Well, whether it's 1 or 2 years,
Okay,
I
so
believe
how do
it's
you
1.
account for the projects moving forward when those
gonna
don't get
take longer.
deposited? You change it, so you move things out year for year?
That's the plan.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, we haven't had a chance to have our meeting this year to decide
What to
that
push,
question.
okay.
But certainly, right now, it looks like we'll have to push it out,
Okay.
because we're not getting that $25,000 revenue. So then the next 2 sheets are what we call the financial worksheet. Okay, they're stapled together. I went staple happy, and I apologize. There's way too many staples in this stuff. So the first one, the third line of the heading says is 2014 to 2018 actual fund balance. So this is as of the end of 2018, not 19. As of the end of 2018, this is what we have done with the capital reserve fund. We have the projects listed down the side with the reference ID, and we have 5 columns, 6 columns, but for 5 years, the columns are there for what was spent in each of the years, and there's a note going out to the right what that item was. And then down at the bottom, there are some summary numbers, but I think what you might be most interested in, is what was spent each year. Just a guess. And that's closed, that's done, and that's 2018. The next page that says draft with a red circle around it is what the plan might look like for 2019 going forward, except there are still numbers there in 2019 that aren't going to happen. So the Rec Commission is going to need to meet and decide what to do with those numbers, push them out, reduce them, remove them. Maybe it's something we don't think we really need after all. So that's draft. That has not been approved. And like I say, I'm sure the first thing we're going to do is take 2019 and push it out. I don't think any of those things are going to get done. There are a couple small ones there, maybe. Wiffle ball court and frisbee golf course. Might be fun to show, and to show that we are doing something and closing out projects. So in general, this is the next 5 years, going from 19 to 23. The previous one was covered in the years 14 to 18, that was 5 years. So this is about halfway through our project. It was originally considered to be a 10-year project. So we are now halfway through it. Okay?
Yep.
Next document says Plaistow Recreation All Events. Various conversations have happened along the way about, well, what does the rec department do? So a couple of the members of the committee went back through history and tracked down events that have occurred. Once you put it in one place, the list looks a lot longer, so it's got to be a little harder to say that we don't do anything in certain months of the year.
I notice a lot of them are like monthly continuing things, like
Yeah.
kids' night out and that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yep. Then the next one is a similar document, and this is for the rec director tasks. There have been a lot of questions, comments about what does a rec director do in 40 hours a week. So, again, some members of the commission went through, looked up history documents, minutes of the commission meetings, so forth, any kind of sources they can get. I didn't participate in that, but the person who did is pretty thorough, and I think that's pretty accurate. Okay?
Yep.
Going too fast, too slow?
Nope,
Just
perfect.
right?
Yep, perfect.
And I'm not even going to mention this
Because
document
we
again.
already beat it to death, thank you.
I had no point in doing it other than I was curious, and when I started to look at it, I went, I'm sure in our accounting systems in the town, it's been accounted for correctly, but all I had available to me to reference was, like I say, the town reports. The town treasurer is responsible for those revolving fund accounts and lists that in her report and the town report, except I'm sure you noticed it was 2016 where they said, no, these have been, this and two other accounts have been transferred to the general account, general fund.
Okay, thank you, John.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All set?
Yep.
Thank you, John.
Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the public
I
hearing.
don't think they're beating down the doors, which is good.
I don't have to.
Okay.
I'm opening the public hearing at 8:16. I'm going to skip ahead and just talk about the library that was pretty much level funded, except for a $36 decrease, and I believe that was in insurance. Cab, do I have that right?
Ish.
Yeah,
A lot of things shifted, hard to say where
but it was pretty much level funded.
level funded.
Okay, for the executive budget, 2019's was 274,514. 2020's is 292,122 with a $17,608 increase, and it's due to cell phones and tablets, unanticipated expenses such as cards, flowers, acknowledgements, and other award ceremonies, and employment contracts. The town clerk went up $10,882. The 2019 budget was 119,199. 2020 is 130,81. And that was due to a salary increase, software upgrades, and supplies. Elections, the budget is up by 10,477. The 2019 budget was 12,185, and the 2020 budget is 22,662. And that was due to there being 4 elections in the coming year, printing costs and salaries, and it's a presidential election, so there's always more costs incurred with that. The finance budget, 2019 was 179,32. The 2020 budget is 181,575 for an increase of 2,543, and that's due to salaries and software. The assessing budget is 2019 was 158,556. We just changed the 2020 budget to 303,466. That's an increase of $144,910, and that's we decreased the assessing contract line, and the increases are due to salaries and software upgrades. The tax collector, the 2019 budget was 48,329. The 2020 budget was 49,247 with a $918 increase, and that was due to the salary raise voted at town meeting. The legal line, legal budget was $55,000 in 2019. In 2020, it's $75,000, a $20,000 increase, and that's due to litigation of labor-related matters and contract negotiation. The human resources personnel budget, 2019 was $2,156,281.67. The 2020 budget was $1,818,421 for a decrease of $337,860.67. And the decrease is due to attrition and having less town employees. The planning budget for 2019 was $97,419. The 2020 budget is $92,507 for a decrease of $4,912, and that's due to having a part-time planning director, and we paid for the master plan update last year, so we didn't have that cost this year. Zoning budget for 2019 was $3,825. The 2020 budget is $3,550 for a decrease of $275. The minute taker salary decreased and less supplies were used. General government buildings, 2019 budget was $281,178. The 2020 budget is $292,185 for an increase of $11,007. And that increase was due to the cost of heat and electric at the safety complex with an updated square footage. The cemetery budget for 2019 was $9,000. The 2020 budget is $8,005 for a decrease of $995, and that was due to a lower sexton salary and less maintenance. The insurances for 2019 budget was $120,858. The 2020 budget is $128,230. There was a $7,372 increase. That was just due to the premiums, the insurance premiums. Advertising and Regional Association budget, $25,205 in 2019. In 2020, it's $25,500, and that was a $295 increase, and that was just an increase in dues and publications. The cable budget of $29,294 from 2019 was level funded this year. The conflict of interest budget of $250 in 2019 was level funded this year. Other general government, $146,733 in 2019, and it's $145,000 this year with a decrease of $1,733, and that was a decrease in computer internet-related expenses. The police budget, we had the presentation tonight. It was 2019 was $2,129,197, and it decreased to $2,011,175, and that's an $118,022 decrease, and that was due to solely the restructuring of the police department and the other things that she mentioned. Fire. 2019 was $692,842. 2020 was $718,791. That's a $25,949 increase, and there was the aging apparatus that needed to be fixed, 3% pay increase in the salaries, and figuring out how to staff the weekend. So that's where that increase came from. Building inspection was $131,006. 2020, it's now $127,706, and that's a $3,300 decrease. And that is due to no longer having a vehicle lease, dues, and the electrical consultant line went down. Emergency management, $24,000 in 2019, $17,600 in 2020. That's a $6,400 decrease, and that was due to equipment and personnel. Highway budget is, in 2019, was $860,308. The 2020 budget was $801,614 for a decrease of $58,694. The decreases were due to a reduction in the salt and sand line, the pavement management line, street sweeping was down, rentals and lease purchase of the chipper added to that decrease, and the increases were due to highway salaries, temp labor, and uniforms. The street lighting in 2019 was $107,500. 2020 budget is 115,000 with an increase of 7,500, and I believe that increase is due to the LED conversion, and we'll eventually get a rebate, but we had to have the upfront costs. Solid waste collection, it was 710,000 in 2019. In 2020, it's 741,376 for a increase of 31,376, and that was due to our contractual obligations and the cost of the tonnage. Solid waste disposal in 2019 was 53,000. The 2020 budget is 71,500. There's an increase of $18,500, and the increase is due to landfill maintenance of the CAP, the engineering and monitoring of that, and then the decrease is in the overtime for the brush pile. We're having less labor there. The health budget in 2019 was $86,029. In 2020, it's $86,379, and that's a $350 increase, and it was in the salary line. Human services is $42,362. In 2020, the budget is $41,723, and that's a decrease of $639, and there was a decrease in funding of community health services based on the usage, and the decreases reflect that. For welfare, in 2019, it was $43,385. The 2020 budget is $32,780, $10,605 decrease, and it's due to a partial salary for a welfare director. The shelter and rent assistance has gone down, and transportation has gone down. Recreation, the 2019 budget was $221,890. I think I messed that up. The 2019 was $221,890. The 2020 is $179,313. It's a decrease of $42,577. Decreases in supplies, concerts, overtime, equipment maintenance, and groundskeeping. And we're going to offset some programming from the revolving fund. The patriotic purposes was level funded. Cultural in 2019 was $16,500. 2020 is $22,500. That's a $6,000 increase, and that's due to the cost of fireworks for Old Home Day. Cultural Conservation Commission in 2019 was $9,650. The 2020 budget is $10,259. That's a $609 increase, and that is due to part-time position wages and NHACC dues. And debt service is $547,562 in 2019, and in 2020, it's $532,506, and that's a decrease of $15,056, and it was decreases in the interest on the PSB bond and short-term borrowing. So our budget has gone down 2.85%, and that brings our 2020 total general fund budget to $9,706,991, and a decrease of $284,808.67.
706.
200.
Bottom line?
The bottom line, $9,706,991.
I heard it at 726 last week, so.
We decreased the
Oh,
20,000.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the public hearing for the budget. And then we have to present the warrant articles also.
I have 15 articles to read.
Did you want to vote on the new article
Yeah,
first?
yes, the SOROC?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Should we do it while we go over them, or
Up to you, up to you.
do you want to just do it now?
When we get to it,
It's the only one that we don't have a vote on.
so there's
Yeah.
15 to read. If anyone wants to volunteer to read
I'll help you.
5 of them,
I'll be
take
hel- I'll
3 of
help
us.
I'll grab.
All right, if you want, I'll read the first 5, and Dennis can take the next 5, and, okay, yeah, we'll skip number 1 because it's the voting of elections, so we'll start with number 2 will be number 1. Then you can take over at number 7, all right? All right, so the first warrant article, Article P2002, Operating Budget General Fund. So shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purpose set forth therein, totaling $9,706,991. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be, is this the correct number, Greg, the 9984? Okay. $9,984,653, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, X and XI, to take up the issue of a revised budget only, which is a majority vote required. I don't have any tallies on recommendations for the selectmen or the budget. Yeah, so I'm not gonna read the tallies.
Just read the words.
Article P 2003, Operating Budget, Water Department. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget for the Water Department, not including appropriations by special warrant and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purpose set forth therein, totaling $157,444. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $157,444, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, X and XI, to take up the issue of a revised budget only. Majority of a vote would be required. With total appropriation is $157,444, which withdrawal from the Water Department Enterprise Fund is the complete same total of $157,444. Amount to be raised by new taxation, $0. The balance in the Water Enterprise Fund as of December 31st, 2019 was $590,000 even. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen on a vote of 5-0-0 and the Budget Committee 9-0-0. Article P 2004, Public Works Facility Garage Phase 3. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $350,000 as a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 BI that will be used to construct a salt shed with solar panels for storage of sand and salt used to treat town's roads during winter months. This shed will be constructed adjacent to the Public Works Facility Garage located at the former PennBox site, map 41, lot 11, 144 Main Street. A majority vote is required. Total appropriation withdrawn from the general fund unassigned fund balance is $350,000, and an equal amount to be withdrawn from the general fund unassigned fund balance of $350,000. No amount to be raised by new taxation. Balance in general fund unassigned fund balance as of December 31st, 19 is,
$2,650,000.
thank you, $2,650,000. $2,650,000. Recommendation by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0-0, and the Budget Committee, 4-5-0. Article P 2005, Contingency Fund. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $80,000 for unanticipated expenses that may arise during the course of the 2020 fiscal year? Any appropriation left in the contingency fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund unassigned fund balance. Majority vote is required. Total appropriation is $80,000. Withdrawal from the general fund unassigned fund balance will be $80,000. No amount to be raised by new taxation. Balance in the general fund unassigned fund balance, do I have to keep repeating this, as of, is the same, correct? $2,650,000. Where was I?
Recommendation.
Recommendation by the Board of Selectmen, 500, and the Budget Committee, 450.
Article P 2006. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $90,000 for repair of Pollard Road culvert? The funds will be withdrawn from the general fund undersigned fund balance. Majority vote is required. Total appropriation, $90,000. Withdrawal from general fund unassigned fund balance is $90,000. No amount to be raised by taxation. Balance in the general unassigned fund balance is
$2,650.
$2,650,000.
Yep. 650. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500. The Budget Committee, 900. Highway Department, equipment truck bed. Article P 20-07, to see if the town shall vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the replacement of a highway department truck bed. Majority vote is required. Total appropriation is $50,000. Withdrawal from the expendable trust fund, highway department equipment is $50,000. No amount to raised by taxation. The balance of the expendable trust fund highway department equipment as of December 31st, 2019, $206,988.44. Board of Selectmen recommended 500. Budget Committee recommended 900. Article P 20-08, Highway Department equipment forklift. To see if the town shall vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of a highway department forklift. Such payment will be withdrawn from the expendable trust fund highway department equipment, with the balance coming from impact fees. Majority vote is required. Total appropriation, $25,000. Withdrawal from the expendable trust fund highway department equipment is $15,000. Withdrawn from the road, withdrawal from road impact fees, $10,000. Amount to be raised by taxation, 0. Balance in the expendable trust fund highway department equipment as of December 31st, 2019, $206,988.44. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, and Budget Committee, 900. Article P 20-09, Capital Reserve Fund Deposit, Fire Department Apparatus. To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be added to the Fire Department Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Majority vote is required. Total appropriation is $100,000. Balance in the Fire Department Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund as of December 31st, 2019, $236,898.69. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, and the Budget Committee, 900. Article P 2010, Capital Reserve Fund Deposit, Fire Department Radio Fund. To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be added to the Fire Department Radio Fund previously established. This is majority vote required. Total appropriation is $15,000. Balance in the Fire Department Radio Fund as of December 31st, 2019 is $15,809.21. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, and the Budget Committee, 54.
Capital Reserve Fund Deposit, Building and Building Systems, Article P 20-11, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $28,000 to be added to the Building/Building System Fund previously established. Majority vote required. Total appropriation, $28,000. balance in the buildings and building system funds as of December 31st, 2019, $15,347.86. Recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, 500, and the Budget Committee, 3-6-0. Capital Reserve Fund Deposit Energy, Article P20-12, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added to the energy fund previously established. Majority vote required. Total appropriation, $25,000. Balance in the energy fund as of December 31st, 2019, $59,856.77. Recommendation by the Board of Selectmen, 500. The Budget Committee, 1-8-0. Citizens Petition, SOROC Donation, Article P20-13. On petition of 25 or more registered voters, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $7,729, parentheses, $1 per person, close parentheses, based on the population numbers provided in the 217 Census American Community Survey, to support the substance misuse prevention, suicide prevention, and community wellness services of the SOROC Coalition for Healthy Youth. SOROC's work promotes wellness and nurturing resilience for the children, youth, and families of Plaistow, as well as surrounding communities. SOROC works through the coordinating community education, programming, and resources, and collaborating with federal and state agencies to help direct additional resources to the town they serve. Total appropriation, $7,729. Recommendation by the Board of Selectmen, 0-3-0.
And should
And
we
the
take a
Budget Committee,
vote?
you need to vote. What's that?
Should we take a vote now?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was the motion?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Second?
You second it?
Sure.
Okay.
So may I make a comment since we have a
Yes.
second? The Board of Selectmen discussed that this particular petition or particular human service organization never went to the human services within the town as other organizations have. And I just talked with Lori this afternoon. She said she has never, ever even seen this, so I gave her the information about it. And the way this warrant is currently written, it looks like it'll be a one-time deal. So next year, they'd have to put in another warrant. We would recommend that they go through the town like other human service organizations as well.
Is this a new organization, or are they
No,
just?
they've been around for a while.
And they're just coming for money now?
And they're going to each of the towns doing a similar thing.
And I believe if another town votes it down, they still can get money from the other towns if they pass it?
If this passes, the money goes directly to SOROC, and we currently had no data in terms of how many Plaistow residents were being serviced by this. There are some programs that they have been doing at the high school, but there was nothing given to us to say we serve this many residents within the town.
Is this that old program that used to be over by Cumberland Farms in
No.
that building?
That's
No,
Sad Cafe you're
that
talking
was
about?
Sad Cafe, that's right. So this is a different,
There's
okay.
been no vetting of this other than what someone could find on the public?
Right, well, they came in, they did a presentation in the December Board of Selectmen meeting. I think it was around the 5th, the 12th. I have it here somewhere. And they presented that they said, we're giving you a petition. We've already had our signatures. And so according to the law, we just accept it as it's been given. But they did not contact anybody within the town first to vet this. And that's a normal process. What I was told was that each organization comes in, they meet with Lori, she goes off and does research to find out about the organization and how they are assisting Plaistow residents.
I didn't see their presentation, I must have missed that meeting, but is this how they get their money from all the towns? They just do a citizen's petition, or do they go through human resources?
This
and
is the
other towns?
very first time that I've even heard of the organization, and this is, I've never seen an article like this since I've been in town.
Lori?
I believe when they went in front of the Board of Selectmen, they said they have been funded for the past 10 years through the federal government, and that money has run out. This money here that each town donates is going to pay their administrator to run it, because they're all volunteers.
So what happens if a town doesn't pass it? Where does that extra money come from?
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. What's their overhead and how much goes to the community as opposed to their administrative costs?
Okay, so we have a call to vote. We have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of recommending the So Rock donation citizens petition, say aye. Opposed? Abstain? So 090.
So 090.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay. Capital Reserve Fund Deposit Transportation, Article P20-14, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added to the Transportation Infrastructure Fund previously established. Majority vote required. Total appropriation, $25,000. Balance in the Transportation Infrastructure Fund as of December 31st, 2019, $34,809.24. Recommendation by the Board of Selectmen, 500, and the Budget Committee, 360. Create and deposit to Information Technology Fund, Article P20-15. To see if the town shall vote to establish an information technology fund under the provision of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of funding equipment and software updates for all of the town's computerized systems as needed in the future, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be placed in this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Majority vote required. Total appropriation, $15,000. Recommendation by the Board of Selectmen, 500, and the Budget Committee, 450. Sam, did you want to?
Sure. Article P 2016, funding for permits to fix the cap of the Plaistow landfill. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $150,000 to fund the permitting process for the Plaistow landfill closure to comply with Department of Environmental Services regulations? The funds will be withdrawn from the general fund unassigned fund balance. A majority vote is required. Total appropriation, $150,000. Withdrawal from the general fund unassigned fund balance, $150,000. No amount to be raised by new taxation. Amount in general fund unassigned fund balance is $2,650,000 even. Recommendation by the Board of, by the Board of Selectmen, 300, and the Budget Committee's tally was 360. Article P 2017, Treasurer.
We don't have to do that.
Oh, okay.
We did all the
Oh,
monetary.
okay, that's it, sorry. Got ahead of myself. I was having so much fun.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Do we have to present all of them or just the monetary ones?
I believe just the monetary ones.
That's what I thought.
Is that correct?
Just the monetary.
Just the monetary, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so,
So, when I look at Town Elderly and Disabled Tax Relief Trust Fund,
Which page, which one are you on?
It's the
page 9, bottom of
9.
page 9.
Okay.
If that passes, we'll end up, that'll cost us money, correct?
I think it's donation based.
No.
It's
It
donation
won't
based?
cost anything. It's
Okay.
basically a way of selecting donations from taxpayers,
Okay,
and they
right.
just put it in with their bill.
okay.
So is that to say that the expendable trust fund for Old Home Day, can people donate to that if a business wanted to donate towards Old Home Day?
The way it has been designed in other towns is done just through the tax bills, but the details for this particular program has not been defined and not delivered to.
just creating it.
So this is just the fund portion. Yep.
Okay, any new business or old business anyone wants to address?
Where are we at as far as minutes?
Last I heard, we were looking into a transcription service, and we're waiting for the town to engage to hire that service.
And the RS7, when do we need to sign that, Mark, or Greg?
Say again?
MS 737, when do we sign that?
That's on
Great
Deliberation Day?
No, before that, right?
Before
It's before?
I'll look at the dates. and
All right, you'll just send us
put it together now.
Yeah.
through the chairman when we
Get
need
an
to come
email
in and
say we
sign
have
it.
to come in.
All
Do
right.
you want that to be ready for you to sign?
Well, we
Well,
just
I
want to
just
know
wanna-
when.
Idea of when, so we'll make sure.
So will there be a budget meeting next week?
No,
No, okay.
unless, yes, Jay?
So what's the bottom line reduction? Was it 2.7?
It was 280, do you want the percentage or
No,
the
just the
number?
percentage reduction.
2.85.
I guess there was a consensus taken earlier this year to reduce it by 5%. Is this, the folks that were in favor of that, are you guys satisfied with that?
The, I'm not gonna say compromise, but what was talked about with the Board of Selectmen was the other 2.5% would be if all the warrant articles passed, the total appropriations wouldn't go above 5% of last year's.
And that's
So is
just
that what we're
those,
looking
that's
at?
just those that are raising taxes.
Correct.
Correct.
So I guess I'll ask this question, and I don't want to bring up any bad feelings, but I need to ask it. So we're not going to see any changes at deliberative session?
Not that I know
Okay.
of.
All right, from this board, I should say, from the budget committee. All right.
I mean, the public's allowed to do
Yeah,
whatever
the
they want.
public, exactly. I'm just looking here. That's all.
Do you want to, do you want me to determine the difference in the
In
warrants?
the warrant
From
articles?
last year to this year?
Are you looking at like a straight percentage
Oh,
from?
looking at, here's the cost, here's the amount of taxes raised last year from warrants, and here's the amount that we have in our warrants this year.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because total appropriation with warrants
be able
last
to-
year was like 10 million
Yeah,
something.
to be able to see the actual percentage that, that Dennis was referring to.
I can have him email that if you want that, but,
We could also, we could
everything
say
passes.
it at deliberative.
yeah, we can bring it up at deliberative.
Okay.
too. Yeah, that would be
Greg
helpful.
said he has the number.
Greg, you have the number? No,
I've got a basis for it, it's not complete.
it's not, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so if you could email that, that would be great, thank you. Okay, well, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:52.